For you finally this evening.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
And glad to have it. And would you like to give us your presentation?
Sure.
I think our chair, who recused herself, gave us a very good idea of what's going on.
Hi, my name is Michael Kenny. I'm a builder, and I currently reside in Carlisle and occasionally Hull. And I saw this property a while ago. It was just, really captivated by it. It's a historical building. It's my absolute intention to keep the look, particularly in the front of the house, exactly, more or less as it is. And I'm sorry, did I pass these to you guys?
We have in our packages.
Okay, great. Right. And, it's important to me. I have a friend of mine who's a fellow developer, and he said, well, you know what you could do with that property? And I said, no, this house really should remain as it is. So what we would do is, if you look at the front elevation.
Oh, actually, I will take one because I don't think our packets include the elevation. Does
Sure.
it? Thank you.
Oh, we don't have the front elevation.
There you go. No problem. I think, is there one around with the elevation?
You want to take this, Shelley, you can go.
Yeah, so if you look at the front elevation here, this is the original building, and then you have the connector, which used to be kind of like a carriage shed type thing, and then the barn. So the main house and the connector would comprise, the first unit. The second unit would be the barn, which I would convert into a residential unit. And then my other thought is to look at connecting, having a 14 by 18 connector going over to a two-car garage, which could accommodate. Now, would I build the garage right off the bat? I'm not sure about that. It really depends on what I bump into in terms of the renovation. As far as the renovation is concerned, I used to own a business that built stress skin panels that would go over post and beam homes. So I'd like to expose the entire frame from the inside of the house and also the barn. The barn has a gorgeous, 14-foot high ceiling, and then at some juncture, they repaired the second floor roof and replaced that with like full cut, 3x10s. So I'd be able to maintain that as well. We designed a septic system to handle it. I reviewed the room count with Jim Gariffi, who's an old friend from some projects I've done out in Carlisle. And that's really what it's going to be all about. And I'm sorry, if you're ever bored, on my website, which is michaeljkenny.com, I did a gorgeous building in Carlisle that was just like this, that was framed in 1782. What happens with these buildings, not this one so much, because it's, been basically kept, in the same family, for a while. Sometimes you unearth, 2 or 3 renovations that have gone on, in the building. The one I did in Carlisle, probably like 3 or 4. And as we uncovered the building, we were able to work with the building inspector, who's a good friend of mine, and expose that post and beam frame. And it really makes, for a unique look inside the building as well.
Are you ready for questions, Mr.
Sure.
I haven't been in the building, but I've heard that there are very low ceilings, especially on the first floor,
Right.
second floor of the main house. How are you going to compensate for that, or are you going to?
Yeah. So a couple of things. If you look at the house on the left-hand side, that ceiling is particularly low. I think my youngest son is pushing 6'6", would have to contemplate wearing a hockey helmet if he came over to see me. So we're going to raise that up as a post and beam floor to match the section of the building on the right-hand side. So that'll get the first floor up to about 6'8", which is okay.
Reasonable.
Also, when you expose the frame, which is currently covered up by, plaster, that'll give you the feel that you're a little more open. On the second floor, I'm going to take it right to the attic. So,
You see some of the bedrooms you put as cathedral.
yeah, so some of the, some beautiful floorboards up in the attic, I'll expose the frame all the way through. And then the back part of the house, as you would look at it, I'm trying to think, I'm going to expose that as well. And, you start off with a very low plate area in the kitchen, but when that frame is exposed totally, it'll go right up into the, second floor area, right up into the attic. So that too will be exposed. And I've looked at the frame, spent a fair amount of time with a couple of good friends of mine who were, post and beam kind of guys, and they feel that that the frame's in really good shape. So the connector's a little bit of a, question mark. We would expose that again. The floor probably has to be replaced there. But again, working with the panels, the interesting part of the panels are they sit outside of the frame, and they form an interior wall that you apply plaster to, a poured urethane-based insulation, and another layer of chipboard, which you apply the roof or the siding to. So it'll be pretty expansive, I think, when we're done with it.
Any of the other board members have any questions?
Where's the parking going to be for each separate unit? Obviously, the garage possibly for the second one, but that would be a future thing. Will they be parking on the street? Will they be parking out back? Where will the parking happen?
Yeah, so there's currently, two spaces right in front of the barn. And then I'm, really trying to get a feel for, which way to approach the garage, if from the right-hand side or if I'm, from the right-hand property line or the left. There's some really pretty trees back there, so it'd be my preference, to see what happens on the right-hand side. And that would be really for use of the garage, so I think people going in and out of the house on a daily basis would tend, one space would go left, the other one would go right and circle into the barn.
Any other board members have questions?
Mr. Kenny, there is no connector there now, correct?
Right.
It's completely open.
Yeah,
Okay.
so where you see, where it says 1.5-story barn, that's the barn, and then the handwritten aspect of the connector and the garage.
Mark, anything?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Can I just clarify again on the parking? So the first unit will be parking where?
So you have two spaces currently right in front of the barn.
Right, they're front and back, right, tandem spots?
Yes. So as you approach the barn, there's two spaces right there, directly in front of you. And if need be, I could, then in that case, I would go to the left-hand side of the house as you look at it, and there's, plenty of space, in that back area.
I think Ms. Shaw has a point that having spaces right in front of behind each other is not going to work for a two-family.
Oh, no, so in other words, in front of the garage,
You're showing only one narrow pair.
well, no, that's the existing.
Okay.
That's the existing
So
driveway, I'm
I
sorry.
think that's what she's trying to
Okay,
get at,
right.
that
No.
they're going to widen that out.
Definitely.
To include enough parking, 3 or 4 spaces at
Right.
least for the size of house and apartment, correct?
You need 4 spaces.
Right.
4 spaces.
Yeah, you need 4 spaces.
In which case, my two options is to have a hammerhead in the front, which I've thought about, or to have or go left and have plenty of parking available, in the back of the house.
Okay.
I think it is probably in the past, this board has not gotten down to the detail of specifying exactly how you're going to manage the
Right.
parking on this smaller project.
Sure.
We just need to make sure that you have 4 parking spaces that
Understood.
are off the road because of snow plowing and.
Right.
Yeah.
and to
Absolutely.
so people can park in their own driveways.
Sure.
Since it's not shown, we should make that part of the condition.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, based on, make sure that that's part of the submittal for the building permit, perhaps, or something like that.
Okay.
So there's no new construction, it's all just renovation internal?
Well, no, he's
The
he's
connector.
adding this
Connector.
connector.
The
This is-
connector,
That's new.
yeah, and the,
The
And
connector to
and
the
possibly the
garage?
garage. No, the connector between the two.
Oh, I thought that was already there.
no,
No. So he's connecting, he's adding this space here, and he's possibly adding a garage.
So that garage is non-existent?
correct.
And the roof lines, do those change? Do they change the direction of the windows? Is there windows overlooking the house next to it?
Oh,
That's different than what it currently has.
it would be, but it would certainly be in keeping with, with the windows on the front side of the house.
Now, how many people here are abutters and are here on this case? If you are here on this case, could you raise your hand? Shelley, do we have a sign-in sheet for people? Yep. Has everyone signed in to our little sign-in sheet? Could we pass it around, please, and make sure everyone signs in? And could you please identify yourself when you stand up to speak, and I'll open it up to questions from the abutters and people who are here on this case.
Well, I'm not an abutter, it's Carolyn Mueller, East Roxbury Drive. I had sent a letter in, I don't know if it is in my packet or not, but I just wanted to say that I really support this project. I was really excited when I heard that rather than tear down yet another old house in town, that someone wanted to preserve it. And I'm really excited after listening to the presentation, because I was hoping that some of the interior architectural details would be preserved as well. And it sounds like you're very attuned to that, so that's a nice thing to hear. And it's one of, the 3 oldest homes in town, and I know I've heard buzzes around that, oh, it's gonna have to be destroyed, it'll have to be torn down, no one will ever wanna live in it. So it's very heartening to hear that he wants to turn it into, 2 families. So I'm all for the idea. I think we need creative things like this to save some of these older homes. And I just wanted to definitely support this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Having said all that, is it okay if I don't read your letter into the minutes
Yes, I
then?
basically said what I
Yeah,
said in the
okay.
letter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Linda Stein, I'm from the Littleton Historical Commission. I want to echo what Carolyn said. The commission supports this project. This is an easy and creative way to save older homes in Littleton instead of demolish them. And that is something that we are seeking, and we certainly support the preservation of this old home.
Anyone else? Okay, we do have a couple of letters on
Just
this.
before you do, just one quick question. This total lot is only 10,000 square feet? Is that a backside?
That's gonna be that section.
Lot 8, 10,000 square feet plus. Looking at the, so it's 280, 284 by, it's gotta be, it's strange, because if you looked at the, the sideline at 284, and the back line at 95 at its narrowest, you would think that it's gotta be in the range of 20,000,
Yeah.
plus.
It looks like a lot of stuff in that lot, but not that it's an issue, but I was just surprised it said only 10,000.
Yeah, you're a better man than I, you picked that off.
Okay, we have a couple of letters, one from Roland. Does anyone want to read it for me?
The applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to Section 173-68 for the conversion of a vintage 1673 single-family dwelling into a 2-family utilizing a portion of the garage space. An informal discussion was had several months ago between the applicant and myself, Michelle Cobley, and Maren Toohill. If recollection serves me, it was the applicant's desire to revitalize the existing structure and facade and convert portions of the barn into a second dwelling unit. It appears that the proposal may be eligible by right under the Town of Littleton recently created bylaw for accessory apartments.
We don't need to read all of that. I skipped down to the last paragraph of this.
Bearing in mind that should the Board of Appeals reject the applicant's request for a two-family conversion, this office would issue a building permit for an accessory apartment under the above noted bylaw, provided it complied with the above noted restrictions, because in essence, the above noted bylaw is in fact a two-family dwelling. No further comment.
Okay, my comment on this is I believe Roland is wrong. I don't think he usually is wrong, but I believe Roland is wrong in this case because it was filed under the old bylaw, so therefore the old bylaw holds. Also, the new bylaw hasn't been ratified by the Attorney General, so it doesn't, according to our town attorneys, Chris Heap and Tom Harrington, it is not in effect yet.
And also, I don't know if it's just semantics, but to say it's a two-family under our present bylaw versus an accessory dwelling under here may carry more weight.
All that being said, we can still grant it if we choose. So, is there anything else I need to read in? I think that was it. Have we heard everyone that wants to speak? Can I have a motion to close the hearing?
Move to close the hearing.
Moved and seconded. Would someone like to propose a motion? Or all those in favor of closing the hearing, sorry.
Aye.
Would someone like to propose a motion?
Do you want to discuss?
Do you want to have discussion?
Not that there's going to be much.
No, I think it's a lovely place to do just what he's trying to do. And we applaud the efforts of, and agree with you, it is nice to see the old buildings in town maintained. I understand that there's a push to bring back the historic district in the common, and that would be a lovely thing. And so it's lovely to see this building preserved, and it's lovely to have an opportunity to do it. And it sounds like his plan and his facade, did you see the pictures of his facade? Are going to work just fine. Does anyone else want to add anything? Are we all in agreement? Then I need a motion.
I move that we grant a special permit for case 886A for the purpose of what Mr. Kelly has proposed here, conversion of the property at 12 Robinson Road into a two-family unit.
I say, as shown by the plan with the addition of 2 parking spaces per unit.
Sounds good.
Is
So
that
it'll be a total of 4 parking, off-street parking?
with
Okay.
it requiring at least four,
Four off-street.
at least 4 off-street parking spaces?
And it should, ideally, it should be per unit, not just an area of 4, but that's.
Or
up to
2
you.
per unit?
That's, the bylaw requires 2 per unit.
I don't want to micromanage how he puts them
No, I
all
said,
together.
but that doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. I don't care if he puts them all together. I don't care if how he puts them there, as long as he has them and they're off-street.
Second.
Sounds good.
And Rod, you're seconding? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You have your permit.
That's great, thank you very much.
There is an
I appreciate
appeal,
it.
there is an appeals
Right.
period.
And that's 30?
I think it's 21 days. Be cognizant of it.
Calendar days, not business.
I believe it's
Right.
calendar
I believe
days.
it says so.
And be cognizant of it, but on the other hand, it shouldn't hold you up, really.
Right.
We I don't think we've ever had, well, we have one case we had appealed 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Anyway, so there we go.
Great, thank you. And thank you for
Thank you.
coming in tonight. I appreciate
Just as a
it.
quick comment, that lot is actually closer to 30,000.
It's 30,
Yeah.
So it's heavy on the plus minus.
Yeah, it's,
I don't know where that came
I'll
from,
figure
the
it out.
10,000.
Well, yeah, they broke it into two lots.
It may be that
30,000,
little
yeah.
piece
Based
was
on the
added
size
in
of
the
it.
pa- in
Yeah.
the
yeah, that
past.
could be.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Good night.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, I'll need it.
Now I think we welcome our chair back in.
Yeah, it's passed.
Yeah.
No reason not to. This is me. Did I open up Jeff? I opened up Jeff. This is Jeff.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 7:45 hearing. I'll open at 7:45 PM. This is a discussion On case number 795B, which was the comprehensive permit case of Wildflower Meadows, 15 Grape Road, and this says that you're here for a request for modification of a 40B comprehensive permit, but I need to tell you what we're able to do tonight. We can listen to an informal discussion and we can take all of your input. I'm not sure we can make a decision under this late notice. If you had a substantial change to your permit, you would have to come here and we would have to have a hearing to determine whether this is a substantial or an insubstantial change. If you're just here to clarify and have a discussion about the existing permit, we can entertain the discussion that way. But if there is anything that needs to be voted on by this board, I think we have to have a formal request for that first, that preliminary determination of whether it's substantial or an insubstantial change. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to the applicant, and you'll describe what we're doing, what you're doing, and then we'll...
Can I ask a point of order question?
Yeah.
Are we able to interpret what we've written, or
Why don't we hear what they have to say first, and then we can determine
Could you
what
appoint
sections...
somebody to put the F first, since they're not gonna vote, it doesn't matter.
Oh, Jeff's not up yet. Can you text him, just text him that we're... I'm going to ask your indulgence to wait 1 minute to see if he's coming up. My phone died down there, so I couldn't either text D.
so I'm gonna ask, how many are you here for this hearing?
Then I saw 2 people who didn't raise your hand. Are you here? In the
Hey.
middle. Are you here for this hearing, or did you have something else you came for? Oh, and you just... maybe we should pass around a sign-in sheet then, shall we?
We have it.
Okay.
Did anyone miss signing it? You did miss signing it? We'll sign in for us then. Oh, you all signed?
Do you have him?
Yeah, I'm saying it right now.
And if I could just get a show of hands, were any of the alternates voters on the comprehensive permit? Mark, were you a voter then?
Question.
You don't remember?
I don't think so.
I'd really like Jeff to be here because he was on the committee for the types of units, the house plans, so I think one of your questions tonight might have to do with the individual lots.
It was,
He's down
well,
in-
it was you, Bill Farnsworth, Jeff, John Campino,
Oh, so I'm missing. Okay.
and Cheryl voted no, so Cheryl didn't
I voted no on what?
on this decision.
Do you want to run down and see if he's coming? He's in planning board. Leslie's going to go down for me. Leslie, these stairs are better. These stairs are easier. Right here.
Go that way.
These stairs are easier. Oh, is that him? Thank you. I wanted you to be here because you were involved in the housing decisions, so now we have 5 regular members. Proceed.
So, several weeks ago, we were approached by 2 unit owners at Wildflower with some questions concerning the completion of the project and some of the things that they found annoying. I'm using the word annoying in the project. As you know, Wildflower is a 40B project. So we have both market rate units and affordable units. 25% of the units are affordable and 75% are market rate. So we are in our second phase. Our first phase was 24 units. Our second phase is 32 units. And as you'll recall, and those that weren't on the board before, we have a couple of elements. We're the developer, or I should say the builder, of the single-family condominiums. And then there is a developer of the apartments that is separate. So in the list of questions that they had, came at the end of our conversation about landscaping on the property. They also had some concerns about their neighbors, lawn furniture, different things that are out and about on some of the units that are around the property, lawn ornaments, if you will. They had questions on garbage, that there is one service that picks up trash cans throughout the property on a given day. And there are a myriad of customers that apparently leave their cans out on a week-to-week basis, which is annoying to them to see them out in the property. And they consider it a health issue as well. We've got some ongoing parking issues where folks won't park, either in their driveways and/or they have overflow parking. There was, subsequent to the meeting with Gary and Fern, Gary in the back, Fern on the other side. Gary in the far back, Fern on the right-hand side.
Thank you. Are you
They're both
residents?
homes. Yeah, they're
Okay.
both homes. We asked them to give us an opportunity to chat with both our design engineer at Places and also chat with the building department to have a conversation about some of these items. When we met with Shelley and Roland about 2 weeks ago, we brought forward the questions that they had. And then we also asked some other questions that some of the residents had asked, expansion of the units as an example. You've got some folks in there that have bought in the last 2 years that have interest in expanding the size of their unit. And some of that is spoken to in the comprehensive permit. But there are some, open questions that are not well defined necessarily in the comprehensive permit that they've asked what they can and can't do as life moves forward. And then we have a matter of fencing. There's several customers in there that would like to be able to put fences around their EAUs for privacy. 3 of which had moved forward to do so. We put a stop to it about a year ago now because Roland had come and said that there was a concern that a fence could be an enclosure. And since it was an enclosure, it would not be allowed to move forward, and customers would not be allowed to put fences around their property. As you'll recall, when we went through the comprehensive permit process, there are some stringent requirements both on the construction or additions to existing units, processes for finishing additional spaces, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, but it doesn't necessarily get into whether somebody could put an addition on the side of the house, for example, if it's within their EAU. So just to refresh everybody, there are EAUs, exclusive use easements, that go around all of the units that are in there. They act like privacy restrictions, although the property is in common ownership. They have exclusive use of those areas around their homes, so they maintain their own property. Unlike a maintenance-free environment, this is more modeled after a single-family home environment, where the homeowner is responsible for their own landscaping, their own driveway maintenance, their own shoveling of their walkway, maintenance of their building, et cetera, et cetera. So the sum total of the conversation that we had with Roland and Shelley, I apologize, looking at Sherry and thinking, was they suggested that we come in for an informal conversation to have some direction. I'm not sure where the concept that we were here to modify the permit came from, because we're not here for modification of the permit. We're here to ask for clarity. We're here for asking for your direction. If that takes us to come back more than once, we're more than willing to do so. This was the path that Roland and Shelley thought would be the best path for us to gain direction from you and be able to provide direction to the owners. I think the overall concern with every 40B is that when the developer leaves, since it is a single trustee environment at this point, meaning that we have control. I'm not sure the control is the right point at this word at this point, but since we have control, to set and establish the rules now so that Roland and Shelley don't have ongoing issues. You know, we've had a brief conversation with David Hale and Mark Brooks about folks in there finishing spaces without approvals. That there's very clearly been work that's gone on inside buildings. And I think, you know, some of that is related to, they feel, you know, owners feel that they own the building, the entire building, and they can expand into any of the spaces that are there. You know, that's a twofold action. First, every square footage that's expanded in the building changes the ownership, and it changes the cost of the condominium fees to those unit owners. And there has to be some kind of a process so that, you know, Roland and Shelley know what's going on, what's being expanded, and also, you know, from David's standpoint, David Hale that's here, you know, there are restrictions on the bedrooms. And I'm not sure that, you know, those are being necessarily followed. I know Roland has told us that he's gone to the project on more than one occasion, knocked on a door, and has been summarily told to leave, and all of the shades were pulled and all the blinds were pulled. So, you know, these are not necessarily all developer-related issues or builder-related issues. Some of them are governance. And our first step, when we first spoke to Gary, was to try to start to get a board together. Not a voted board, but a developer's board, so that they could start to get involved in the decision-making for the trash barrels and, you know, the ongoing, and get some rules and process and procedures in place to make things, governance easier when the project is completed. And I think some of that can't really move forward because we ran into, you know, all of these questions that I think, quite honestly, you as the governing board need to step in and be able to give, you know, direction. It's not a modification. We're not unhappy with what was written. It's just that some of these things are really not part of what your writings contained. And because of that, I think both Shelley and Roland need some direction as well as we do. And I can take them, you know, one at a time tonight, but that's generally what brought us here. Our first conversation with Fern and Gary began us down the path of looking at what exactly was written in the permit, going to our, you know, engineer places to have a conversation about what their intent was with some of these plans that were done. You'll recall that this was approved a long, long time ago before we ever were involved as a different project. And we just need to have clarity to know where, you know, our responsibilities are and clarity, so.
Before I have the board comment, I'd like you to clarify a few things that you said for everybody,
Sure.
please. There should have been a condominium association formed,
There is.
and the condominium association should have definition on many of the things you've raised tonight, particularly garbage cans, lawn ornaments, fences, and exterior and interior visual on the units. The second thing I'd like you to, and you said there is a condo association.
There is. There's a condominium, the association was formed, your town council approved the documents
And it was
before.
approved.
Yeah.
And generally in projects like this, the developer remains the condo chief cook and bottle washer and president and board of directors until X number of the units are sold or so many years have passed. Are you, as the developer, still the chief cook and bottle washer?
We are at 7 years, if I understand it correctly. And, you know, we bought the property from David and Mark and his partners in, I think, August of 2014. So we're just cresting, we started construction, really, roads in late August and September. We delivered our first unit in, I think, February or March, when the sewer
17.
treatment plant. Yeah, so it's not quite been 3 years.
Wait, you delivered the first unit in February, March of what year?
15.
Of 50. Also, you said exclusive use areas. Do you arbitrarily draw lines around these units, or are the areas what we defined?
Yeah.
And there's a 15-foot offset in a building envelope, okay.
We've always stood by that.
Okay, is there, just show an example of that. Put it right up on the board so we can see it. And then you've referenced Fern and Gary. What I'd like them to do, please, is introduce themselves and maybe just give a quick presentation. Since you said you're the ones that motivated all of this, I'm going to treat you like applicants today, just to hear from you.
Well, I can start.
Introduce yourself, please, and
Sure.
your address. Thank you.
My name is Gary Sawyer, 5 Bishop, Wallflower. I've been a resident there for the last couple of years. My chief issue is the landscaping. A lot of the things that Mark mentioned can be met once the condo association is underway and there are members. We can go after that. But landscaping is catching up with us here. When we first purchased the property, Mark was very clear, and I accepted it, that his responsibility was to seed and only seed. And I said, yes, sir. I didn't know any better. And then about 2 months ago, as a result of some concerns I had, did some digging in the permit and determined that there was a pretty robust landscape plan that I expect that you have, and impressed me that the town probably had some more serious intentions of this
Some of us
development.
worked very hard on that.
Yes, and what's come out of this is a development. I've got a very fine home. Mark did a fine job in that, I'm happy with that. But I'm not happy with the way the neighborhood is developing. Each of us are going our own ways, developing landscaping, ranging from people that put in thousands of dollars worth of landscaping on their own, not knowing any better, me included, with Mark's help, and those that have just seeded. And that's all there is. And I was very frustrated when I found out that there was to be a very fine landscaping plan that was before us. And that, at a minimum, disappointed me, that an expectation was set in contrast to the permit, at least my reading of the permit, maybe I'm not interpreting it properly. But then to add a little fuel to the fire, and it may have been just interpretation, I went to Mark's website, and on Mark's website, it makes reference to a landscaping plan that includes brick walkways and flowers and plants and stone walls. And that just has not happened.
Thank you. And your turn.
I think,
Oh, sorry, I need your name for the record.
Fern Wolf,
Fern.
9 Buttercup Lane.
Firm Wolf 9 Buttercup, thank you.
I just like to concur with everything that Mr. Sawyer has said. He's much more eloquent, I think, than I am. I just want to say I'm disappointed in the disconnect between what I saw on the permit, which I think is supposed to happen, versus the actual result of the land. And as much as I, would like to hope that it would be finalized in such a way, I'd like an assurance that, it will or will not be what I can expect.
Can I go back to asking the applicant a question?
Yes, well, just 1 second. I want to open it up to the board next. I wonder if it makes sense to take one item at a time. So we're kind of on landscape right now. Does it make sense to stay there for now?
Sure.
So go ahead and ask the applicant.
In passing discussion outside of this board, I made reference to the landscape plan with you. You told us part of your purchase from Mr. Hale is that he would be responsible for that landscaping and that you were not.
Well, I think.
I'm a little confused
You
about
had said
that.
earlier about your concerns when you were in the process of permitting the property.
When we were in the process of permitting the
Correct.
property.
That's what we're talking about.
We did a very extensive landscaping plan and actually talked a lot about different tree placements and heights of trees and types of trees and all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm one of the people that worked hard on this because I wanted to shield the houses and the neighbors behind,
Yeah.
as well as give people a little bit of space and privacy
So,
themselves.
To
And
answer that question,
Is it in here, Mark? Okay.
well, yes and no. So, this is essentially what the original landscape plan that's in your file. I'm gonna say it's a landscape plan because it really isn't a landscape plan, because a landscape plan not only defines the species of what you're putting in, but the sizes, the locations, the numbers. None of that is in any of what we have. However, to answer your question, you were concerned about, during the permitting process, about the landscaping along Route 119.
It was a prime concern because a lot of the back doors empty out towards 119. And the thought of a child or dog tumbling out the back door when a parent turns an eye for a second and hitting that busy road was a real concern.
There was also concern about the shielding or the landscaping that you spoke about between the folks on the adjacent subdivision. And these are all trees depicted on here that have been installed. Those were installed by David and Mark and their company under our partnership agreement, if you will. It's really not a partnership agreement, but for all intents and purposes, we pay a certain amount of money for everything that goes on the property that's considered to be joint. So Boxwood Drive was constructed, the apartments were constructed, they're fully landscaped. There is landscaping here, and the reason, let me just switch gears for 1 sec. This is the original plan. So this is the one, if you recall, that had the carriage house here, because originally we were not gonna have garages on the units on Morning Glory. If you remember back that far, then we
Yes.
came for a modification, like in October of 2015 and November of 2015, and we took the carriage house out and we went to houses on Morning Glory which all had single-car garages, because there were concerns about the market rate folks that they didn't want to walk at night in a dark area and walk from the carriage house to their single families. So we redesigned this and removed the carriage house, and then went to the same plans you had already approved that had single-car garages. They just weren't originally supposed to go in that area. So to speak to what you asked about, Cheryl, all of the landscaping that David and Mark and company had proposed, the large pine trees, are here. All of the landscaping is here. All of the landscaping is here. So everything was installed probably, a year ago or more, all along the buffers that were required to be installed all the way down along Boxwood Drive. There has been landscaping done by their group at the entrance to the property. There are 2 planting beds that are there, and they have begun to install, or have installed, street trees along Boxwood down as far as this point right here. Okay? So each of these spots, and you're gonna have to excuse me for a second, I'm assuming they're green just because I'm colorblind, but each of these spots represent trees that are gonna be installed either on Boxwood, on Buttercup, on Chamomile, all the way throughout Boxwood, up Morning Glory, and on Hyson. So those are all street trees. So to define the differences, David and their group is installing everything that's along Boxwood, all the way up to the emergency access. We're responsible for any of our roads that we constructed to do the landscape, the street trees on them, and the street trees on Chamomile, Buttercup, Morning Glory, Hyssop. All of those are our responsibility. Jointly responsible, I guess, for the ones that have already begun to be installed. So I don't know if that answers your question. I honestly don't remember the outcome of what was agreed to in terms of buffering along 119, but I believe that's all in place.
It wasn't a split rail fence.
Right, I mean, there was a lot of, is there a split rail fence there now?
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't something as
There is-
crazy as a split rail.
There is a berm that we built here that has pine trees all along that berm that's on the Morning Glory circle. And again, when I say we, I meant them. We brought some loom in and did some things, but they planted all of those pine trees that are along there and then landscaped down to Route 119.
Shelley, were all of those meetings recorded? Okay, we may have, unfortunately, I think you may have bought a silk,
No,
I think you may have.
I have no disagreement with what David and Mark has done. I'm here to try to get clarity for my customers. My customers are not David and Mark. I'm their customer. These people are my customers. So I'm trying to get clarity so that this doesn't end up ugly, a year from now or 6 months from now. We're in year 3, or about to, enter year 3. We want to pave. We've already had our paving contractors out there to give us pricing. We're about to let the contract out in phase one, raise all of the structures. David and Mark have already done boxwood, so they've paved their second coat from the entrance all the way up to where their apartments end. So that part of it is completed. I'm gonna be very selfish tonight. Whatever their agreements are, I'm sure that they'll meet whatever their obligations are. I'm just trying to get clarity so that I can solve Gary, Fern, and the rest of my 50-odd customers that have bought from us so that we can get a finished game to finish this project.
Quite
Mark.
frankly, I gotta tell you, there was a extensive landscaping plan, and Roland mentions in his notes to us that they weren't included in this because of the lack of ability on detail. And I actually remember raising that question and being told, oh yes, these landscaping, don't worry, it's included. It can't be shown right here, right now.
And so
So,
you were talking about common improvements. I'm talking about EAU improvements. So let me just illustrate this for a second, so we can, try to get. So, one of the things that Roland wanted me to show you tonight, even though he is not here, is this was the original plan. I've taken out all the layers and everything else so that it kind of pinpoint focus. These are all the street trees. This is the landscaping that's on the plan for along the entranceway. We are committed to doing all of the street trees that are shown on the original plan. Roland was a little bit concerned, and Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, that we've had extensive amounts of blasting. Okay, we're into blasting in the close to $500,000. We knew up front there was an extensive amount of ledge. As you'll recall, our customers drove what they buy. So we had the flexibility within the models that were approved, and Jeff was involved in that, to use different models in different locations as long as they fit within the EAU. So that's already been done. So all 56 of our houses now have been selected, every single one. What has happened, and this is what Roland brought to our attention, is this is an as-built of all of the units that we've constructed to date. And this is an as-built. You only see there's only one foundation missing, which is 37, which is going in this week. So everything is here. It's now as-built. Everything is within the EAUs that it was originally designed to be. Every house is on the ground on the face of the earth. Where phase one has occurred, everything has been graded, everything has been seeded, as Gary alluded to. We now are going to go in, pave Morning Glory, pave Hyssop, pave, and then put in our street trees. So in the permit itself, for us, for what we're speaking to, there was an additional attachment beyond the larger diagram of landscaping, which broke it down, and these were 2 examples that we get. So during our construction process, Roland is tasked with ensuring that our plans don't deviate from the group of plans that were approved, that we have all of our utilities shown on a plan. So there is a plan that we provide Roland that's called a UDP, or Unit Development Plan. It takes the individual lot, shows the house on it, the driveway, the walkway, and it shows the street trees, the walkway, and however it fills in, okay? So this is an example of the UDP that Roland received, and the reason I did it for 13 is because 13 is shown as an example within the permit set. So Roland got this plan provided to him with the Aaron Solo, which happens to be on 13. And he got it with the engineer's stamp, which is required, showing all of the utilities that come out the boxwood. It shows the landscaping, it shows the deck, it shows street trees. This is what he acted on. So he provided us with a building permit for lot 13 in phase 1. That house is all done. It's been graded, There's grass there, there's a walkway, there's a driveway. The house is completed. It's on the corner of Morning Glory and Boxwood Drive. There are street trees that have been placed from the boys from Omni that are all along Boxwood, which I illustrated earlier. So the question that I think we need to have clarity on is, we gave a UDP that Roland acted upon, and he also provided us with an occupancy permit when we were done. We obviously acknowledge that on the major, the plan that's behind this, not as an example, not as the example, but on our as-built, that there are street trees, both on Morning Glory, High Stop, and other little flowering trees that are on there. We're responsible for putting all of those in. The question I think that came down when we sat down, Gary came to us, we went to our engineer, we asked, what was this supposed to, do? The engineer has told us this is not a landscape plan. A landscape plan has sizes, number of trees, types of bushes, etc. We did not provide this kind of information on our UDP. Whether it was ignorance or not, the way that we interpreted it originally, right or wrong, which is why we're here, is that my contracts with my customers state that my landscaping is limited to paving the driveway, 2 inches, stay coat, putting in a walkway, which we do, which is a paved walkway in this instance and all of them, looming and seeding the entire property, and installing all of the street trees and the, whatever trees are shown on this plan, okay? We did not turn in this type of detail, which was an example in the permit. The 3 examples that are here, there were about 11 different, 11, if I counted correctly, an average, somewhere between 7 and 11 small bushes, flowers, that are shown on it and depicted on the plan. It's also depicted somewhere here on this one, as an example on 13, that it's a pervious walkway. So on one of the others, on I think it was 25, I think you pulled up, Shelley, we couldn't find.
I have it right here, Mark.
Okay, so on 25, it shows a lamppost. Now, we didn't put any lampposts in on the entire property. So in order to wrap this whole thing up, this is where we're asking, not on common areas, specifically on individuals. And then the other question that falls out of this landscaping is, we essentially blasted the entire face of this property. And we've changed the entire grading to the grading plan. So this is an as-built of what it lays out with on the face of the earth today. Now, I've had all the other the trees that are shown on this master plan that's in there superimposed on here. And as you can see, the trees fall almost on the buildings, because the buildings have moved because of ledge or whatever within the EAU, but they're not exactly what was originally shown, because we had the flexibility of not putting those foundations in. So we need to get some clarity on where they hit a building. Is it okay to move it 15 feet and put the street tree in? As long as they're aligning on the road and they are whatever is shown on a master plan for a flowering tree or a conifer or whatever, where's the direction?
There's also a problem with if you plant a tree right on top of ledge, it's just going to die. So.
Well, some trees, and thank you, some trees like this here, which was shown on the original plan, actually are not even in an EAU. They're in a place that we didn't even disturb. And there are existing trees and existing ground cover there, and it's right on top of the ledge. So there's a mound of ledge we just went in and landscaped here a couple of weeks ago, because the buyer of 20 and 24 had commented that this hadn't gotten cleaned up in phase 1. So we went in, removed all the rest of our debris that was there, loomed it, seeded it, the grass is growing. I was up there, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, to see one of the customers. But you couldn't put 5 trees, flowering trees here, because there are already trees there. So this is kind of where, to answer Gary's original question, and Fern when they came to us, and to the extent of the permit, not talking about common landscaping specifically to my customers' units. My contract with them has extremely tight limits on what we do. And Gary spoke to that. I don't think there'll be any disagreement that we've met our contractual obligations to them. Gary brought up at the end of the meeting, do we meet our contractual obligations to the comprehensive permit, which is a completely different way to approach it and look at it and try to get direction on it. Okay? Petering down to, it's a 40B. We're having difficulty trying to get people to cut their grass. You know, never mind take care of, we've actually given shrubs to customers and done some landscaping, only to find out they let it all die. So what I said to Gary during my meeting is, I can give you gold, but if you don't take care of it, it surely becomes bronze within a few weeks. So, you know, I understand Shelley and Roland's questions, and, you know, that's why they asked us to come here tonight and get some direction so we can finish. We wanna pave, you know, phase 1 in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We wanna raise the manholes, pave, you know, the Omni boys have already done their job. We'd like to close that out. And then we'd like to go in and do our street trees, and where they're in driveways or houses, can we have the flexibility to move them? Do you consider that just to give us some direction? Or does that require us to come in and you know, open this up in some way, shape, or form? I'm not talking about common landscaping, that's not really, you know, the reason I'm here tonight.
We understand that.
It's just not, that's not why I came here.
Mark,
I came here for 5 or 6
I'm
questions.
thoroughly confused. I heard everything you said, and I have no idea what you're asking us.
I need some direction on the individual EAUs.
But are we giving you direction
I hope so.
based upon the landscape representations you made for the EAUs in the individual lots on which you applied for a permit, or this thing that I'm reading from Places that's called a landscape plan? And did we say anywhere in the permit about streetlights throughout the project?
No, in the permit, the only streetlights that were required, there were 4 of them on Boxwood Drive, and they were all been installed. They were installed under the joint.
My
agreement.
memory also was that we required them at intersections.
David? I don't believe so.
We installed the ones that were.
On the plan. Yeah. I think there were, I did review this, and I did have Places review it as to the question, because Gary asked the question about individual post lights.
I think we need to discuss this as a board. I understand what you're asking. You're asking, do you need to go back to what was in the permit, which is those designs, as the samples
Well,
of
they're 3 samples.
landscaping? Because we were told there would be shrubbery, we were told there would be various things around each property, and promised that everything would look absolutely gorgeous, et cetera. So we, I think, need to discuss as a board how we're going to hold their feet to the fire or not.
We need
Keeping
to
in
go
mind
back,
of what-
excuse me,
what
we
their
need to
things
go,
are.
we need to go back to the decision. This board made a decision, and it had a lot of detail in it, and I'm looking at page 12 of the decision that says, on the common infrastructure, we dictated a lighting plan as to the shared driveway on Boxwood Drive, landscaping, screening, and planting only as to the 119 entrance and vegetated buffers. By the way, this is on the common infrastructure, so suffice it to say that you've represented that that's all been done. Then it says plans applicable to Lot 3, which is not the question before us tonight. And then triple I says plans applicable to each of lots 1 and 2, the quote, for sale component. And in that, we did not repeat a lighting plan or a landscape screening and planting plan. It was,
Exhibit F.
It's referenced at the last paragraph on page 17.
so then we go to Exhibit F. Sample attached here to is Exhibit F, which is the sample unit development plan. And what's on Exhibit F? We have to go right to the decision for this.
That's what he's showing us right there.
No. This is part of the landscape plan. Exhibit F shows different details, and that's the question.
What's our Exhibit F?
It's in your packets. It's the unit development plan that's part of the decision, and it's a specific one that shows.
Is that number
The building envelope, it shows landscaping, it shows a pervious walkway, it shows a light post. So our question is.
This one here.
What are we supposed to follow?
Is that
Yeah,
number?
so this was in there too. This is part of the,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
So
that's where the
point
confusion
being,
lies, is
there's
there's
two
none of them are
different
the same.
things shown.
This,
as
this
unit
Exhibit F
development.
I'm looking at shows 25 Aurora, the Aurora House.
That's an example.
That's Exhibit F as an example.
And then both of these are examples as well.
And what's the other one you said we're to look at?
This is, I believe, page 2 of the landscape plan, which is one of the 11 by 7, yes.
So the one that he just put up.
Yeah. You want me to bring this to you?
So is these not,
It's part of the final set of endorsed plans.
have these not been done to the houses? Is that part of the question?
Yeah. Right.
Is this
so-
the, do the
so
houses
the
not
re-
look like this?
No, the houses are completely different because those are not even the houses that are on the
Or even in
lots.
ballpark, like you said, it's between 7 and 11 bushes.
Yeah, no, there are no 7 to 11 bushes. We have not put in any bushes, trees have been put in along Washington Drive.
Got that, yeah.
There will be trees, and they're on there. So this is where there's some.
Let's talk about just
Clarity.
the unit, just to talk
No,
about
the
the
street trees are part of the
EUAs.
unit development plan. That's what I said to you originally. This is the unit development plan.
Well, I
that we
see a
provided
street
Roland.
tree, I see a street tree on the unit development plan.
There
I
is.
also see foundation shrub plantings.
Correct.
A light post, an ornamental tree. And somewhere I read that you're supposed to have a stone, where did I see stone against the house?
Yeah, we have stone against the houses in the
Okay,
verbiage.
okay. So on your example plan, Exhibit F, we're looking at, you're missing some shrub plantings and an ornamental tree and a light post. But,
On this one, there are none of those.
on that one there, but we're talking, our decision referenced Exhibit F.
These are part of your exhibit. This is part of the plans that are in your packet.
Is it?
Yes.
F.
Okay, I
Not
don't know what
Exhibit
this.
F, that's part, this is part of the final approved plans.
Yeah, but our decision references landscaping per Exhibit F. And Exhibit F clearly shows a lamp post and an ornamental tree and some shrubs, foundation shrubs. I don't think you can say the final approved plan didn't have it, so it disappeared. The decision says it needed it.
No, the final approved plan has this on it. These are, you got 3 examples. You got one that you described as F, then you have these 2 that are also in your plan set.
Our decision references landscaping.
What he's saying is
As
this
Exhibit
is part
F.
of F. There's
No,
more.
it's not in the
That's part of
decision.
master
No, it's
plan.
not. The decision's
The
recorded.
decision also speaks to the landscape plan, which is the general landscape plan, which also has these as as examples of the unit development plan.
We couldn't make a plan that showed this level of detail for every unit. It didn't make sense. So we have some examples, and all the examples have lampposts and walkways and
No.
shrubs and.
No, no,
some
only one
don't.
of the 3 have a lamppost.
Okay.
All of them have walkways,
I
all
don't
of them
think
have
any of us
driveways.
were trying to specify which units had lampposts.
You did not.
We weren't trying to.
That's what I thought.
And we were, but on the other hand, we were promised a bit of a rose garden, so to speak,
We can put on a rose garden.
but,
That's the direction of the board.
but we need,
We just need to know what size rose garden, how many bushes, what type of bushes, because these 3 that we have are not indicative of the 15 different houses that we've built, 56 times in there. I just need some direction to meet my requirements, if you feel.
okay, so we need to discuss this. I don't want
That's
to.
what he's doing here, so let's discuss it.
I'm just trying to get.
So I don't think we wanted to.
I want to hear from Jeff, because he was here. He's one of the
I
originals,
don't,
too.
I think that, I thank you for making the distinction between the common landscaping and the individual unit landscaping. But my impression is there is no landscaping for the individual units.
Today.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
put
a couple
in, we
people
put
have
in the
put in a few
driveways.
bushes.
We've
No,
put
no,
in the
no, I'm talking
walkways.
about planting. And
You're not talking about planting?
I am talking about planting, and unfortunately, you weren't present for the years of
No.
hearings we had. But these were part of our hearing and were presented and discussed, and as Cheryl put it so nicely, we were promised a rose garden. And when I drive through there, it doesn't even look finished.
Okay.
And without foundation planting, now, we can talk about how many shrubs, but this is actually quite detailed and for a generic thing, but it talks about ornamental trees, ornamental shrubs, shade trees, perennials, ground cover. There isn't even a shrub. So if you look at up in the middle on the there's a big, so this is what we looked at as a board, thinking, and especially we were concerned because these houses were so close together that it needed something to soften it and to look attractive. Now, I drive by and I see, you don't even have skirts on the porches, so you're seeing, like what in my profession we call dead cat space, because there's no way of doing anything with it. If it had a couple bushes in front of it, that'd be better. And you have the whole thing of the current phase on Boxwood across from the apartments. Man, that needs landscaping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harsh. So I would say, from my point of view, as someone who went through the approvals of this, it does not meet what our expectation was. And it's pretty clear that there was going to be some, I don't know we're not going to sit here and design the landscape. That's not our job. You have to go back to places, and maybe, I would say that's maybe more than is, possible, but there's got to be something.
Right, so Roland and Shelley had asked us to come here
Yes.
because there are 3 plans.
Yeah.
Right, so 25 is an example, 13, and this shows 6 and 5. So all of them are different, Jeff.
Of course,
So-
because you didn't
But we've
even.
only got 3.
Yeah, but that's, what do you,
not asking
if you
you to
asked me
design
what to
anything.
do, I would say go to places and get a landscape plan for what you built. You're the one who decided to build,
Yeah.
to have the customers have their own thing,
Yeah,
which, is a complicated process to go through.
it has been.
And when you did it, I thought, good for you, but man, I wouldn't want to do that.
We won't again.
Good. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we would go out there and count every piece of ground cover you put in, but there is nothing.
Okay.
I gotta agree
So, but
with,
from their standpoint, which is why I'm here,
Yeah.
and from his standpoint and their standpoint, so if I pick one, 6 as an example, I just don't, I don't know how they, and I can go back and have places.
I think I don't even know if, I think you need to come back and propose a landscape package that is generic for each house. 6 shrubs, 12 this, 14 that, and do it.
or 6 shrubs, and, something reasonable. We don't want you to be out there planting things in places that don't make sense. We don't want you to be planting shrubbery that's going to die immediately. We just wanted a little bit of a rose garden, maybe a daisy garden. Okay, something that is
Actually, a dandelion garden would look better than what's there now.
You're gonna get dandelion shortly, don't worry.
We want something that's reasonable, that softens the buildings and makes it look like a loved, cared-for neighborhood that is there. And we understand that if shrubs die, it's not necessarily your fault. I'm sure you'll plant healthy specimens and give the now already owned landowners instructions on them, but you can't make someone water their plants. But on the other, and also, some of this looks pretty fancy, but there should be something. We really fought and talked hard about landscaping.
Let me ask, Mr. Hale had a comment.
So, I have one other request for the board to consider, and that is that there be some security for finishing the project.
Yeah, that's what I did in the parking lot too, just like you. I went like this,
So,
because we already have all our financing in place. So this is kind of a selfish request because
Now, this
they
is-
want to be done, and we're not done. So we've been pushed on our construction, as an example, on hurry up and get this done, or hurry up and get that done so we can pave. And as I started to say in the beginning, we're not 3 years in. We have not built all of our units. We still have heavy equipment on the property.
Let me ask Mr. Hill to complete his thought, please. Excuse me, one at a time. Mr. Hill. why do you want security to finish the project? Is
So
that
I'm here-
impacting you?
Yes, I'm here representing the investors and the residents of the apartment complex, which I'm a part owner. And it's really important that the finished paving, the curbing, the drainage work, we have a common drainage system. You know, we've got a lot of runoff that goes into the basins. The place, you know, it's, as you said, it's not finished. And, you know, I think there's 7 houses to sell left, some of which are affordable. And it's, if this were, you know, a subdivision, you'd require a bond. My company put up a bond for every single penny of infrastructure. So, you know.
Why
paving
is
of the
it?
roads-
But Mr. Hale, you-
One
So,
second.
so I am concerned for my investors that the project, that he'll sell the last houses, get an occupancy permits, and not finish. And, you know, the place needs to be finished.
So we were on landscaping, you seem to have jumped ahead to the road infrastructure and the failure of the road infrastructure to be completed.
It's
I just
all
want to,
related.
I just want to ask something. We had you were the applicant, you were the one that was approved for this project. We had you furnish the bond. You subsequently sold this piece off to Mr. Gallagher. Did you not protect yourself in that sale? And why are we being asked to police, and maybe I'm.
Part of the permit.
That's what I was going to say.
It's in the permit that it be done. And it
What
just wasn't
permit?
done.
In your permit?
No,
In your
it's
permit.
in a comprehensive permit, and I, you know, might remind you that when we finished the re-permitting, Mr. Gallagher was involved, and, you know, those landscape plans came from places at their direction. You know, I didn't have anything to do with the planning of the condominium side of the project.
So,
Those plans,
David,
those plans.
David, that's not really accurate, right? We're letting your office.
and Mr. Gallagher, through the chair, please.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
so
I apologize.
all I'm saying is that the permit requires a bond for, you know, finishing and securing the finishing, or withholding occupancy permits. And, you know, we just, you know, we can't have our investors and our residents exposed to an unfinished project. And we just want to make sure it's done. And we're
I have
close.
Mr. Hale's attorney jumping out of his seat. Let me get him next.
That's not- now
We're on agreement on this. He's on the
Mrs.
clock.
Mrs. Chairman, can I just interject for 1 second?
1 second,
One
I'm
second.
still listening
I
to Ms.
understand.
You
One
you
second.
can
You're gonna get
rebut.
more
I'll
chance
give
to
you a
talk.
chance to
I know,
rebut.
But this isn't their meeting. I'm
I'll
trying to
give you
get
a
this
chance to
secured for my
rebut.
residents, that's all.
I'll get you a chance to rebut.
Okay.
I've asked for comments from the abutters, from the people in the room. I've got Mr. Hale, and he's come with counsel. Counsel.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, I mean, there was no notice here of any, to the residents or Mr. Hale or anybody about a modification of a permit. So I'm glad to hear that we're not looking for a modification. But I would say we are talking about interpretation of conditions of the permit which affect all of the residents and affect, you know, Mr. Hale. So respectfully, if you're gonna hold a hearing or hold a meeting about these issues, I would suggest that you give notice to all of the unit owners. So only fair. These things affect them directly, so if we're gonna create, and I'm just taking this as an example, it's not our hunt, but the EAU, you know, landscaping plan is a generic plan applicable to all of the units. Then the unit owners ought to have notice of that, be able to come and comment upon it, give you their input. And the same is applicable, you know, more generally to the completion of the, you know, infrastructure that affects all of the units. Now, Ms. Gallagher says it's not our meeting, but the building inspector, the zoning officer, has given you a memorandum in which she's raised a number of issues. And one of those issues is that we're getting down to the last 7 units. And there is, as gentleman is, a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to complete the project. And the town, to our understanding, has no security for the completion of the project. And I the chair
Don't
talked
we have a
about.
bond from you?
One second.
Well,
Not for his interior roads.
not for his
Just for
work.
Boxwood.
So, when you look at paragraph 54, and I don't want to read it out or maybe go through it in detail, but paragraph 54 and 55 talk about security in terms of the components of the project, i.e. the rental component and the for sale component. And if you look at 54F, essentially what it says is that, and I'm paraphrasing, so I don't have to read it all, but essentially what it says is that for each construction phase in the component, Mr. Gallagher has said there are two construction phases. On the issuance of the first occupancy permit for the construction phase, the developer is supposed to post security in the same way that would be applicable in a subdivision, the kind of security that the planning board would require, except for, the covenant component. So those three forms of security are a bond, a cash, or a tri-party agreement backed by a lender. To my understanding, the town has none of that. The second part is that it says there that the security provision is supposed to be administered by the zoning board of appeals in the same way that a planning board would administer, the bond provisions in connection with a subdivision. And what 4181U says is that when you're looking for, when the trigger event occurs, in this case, the first occupancy, developer is supposed to come before the board. The board is supposed to make a determination in its opinion as to what the reasonable amount of security would be to complete that phase of construction. And then the developer has one of the three options, bond, cash, or tri-party agreement, to post. None of that has happened. Typically, when you're talking about subdivisions, typically the way that's done is when the developer comes before the planning board has its consultant go out, Graves, I'm guessing this, go out, inventory what needs to be completed, estimate the cost, and put that as a report, to the board, so the board can make an informed decision as to the amount of the security. None of that appears to have happened here, either with respect to phase one or with respect to phase two. Now, given, tremendous amount of work that remains to be done to complete in the for sale component, I think the town and my client, as a financial interest, is at great risk if we allow this process to continue and we come down, we're down to 7, and who knows what the equity in those 7 is, or what mechanism you would ever have to convert that equity to create, a means to complete if the developer doesn't. So, and again, the EAUs are not our hunt, but it is an example here, is if you're gonna allow this process to continue without getting security, what happens when you get down to the last unit and there's still a disagreement between multiple unit owners and the developer as to whether they've complied with the permit or not? Before the board says, gee, we had Exhibit F, it had a fairly detailed, I call it a landscaping plan, fairly detailed components. None of that has been done. How are you going to enforce that provision?
So, thank you. No, what you've raised are interesting things that I'm going to take some executive privilege on right now. You made a point that we don't have everyone in the room who matters, and this has gone beyond a simple discussion of interpretation to some very serious concerns that I see on the table here. You've raised some issues about a bond and the adherence to the decision that I think need to go to town council, frankly, and probably our consultant for 40B, that Ed Marchant that helped us. And perhaps, in light of what you're saying and in line with what you're saying, it may be recommended that we have the peer review consultant do exactly what you said, which was to determine the infrastructure remaining to be done. In any event, and you raised a comment by saying that, Cheryl, that you thought the board needed to talk about this and think about this and not do it tonight, and I think that's valid too. There's an awful lot that was laid out here in front of us tonight, and I think we need to get.
Discuss it among ourselves. I mean, I think we can give him direction on landscaping. In fact, I think we just did.
I don't think that is, first of all, I don't think that was a full board determination, but also, I think that right now, if building permits, if we give a landscaping decision that results in building permits, occupancy permits issuing, what the attorney said might be valid, that you have a bunch of owner occupants who are dissatisfied with the extent of completion, and there's no mechanism for making him come back to complete once the occupancy permits are delivered. So I think we need council to input on this, I really do. I don't think we're at a place that we can decide this as a board. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I would like to just, educate myself about this bond situation, because typically planning board bonds are just for the infrastructure, the road, the utilities.
They have
It's not
nothing
for
to do with it.
completion of individual finishing of lots, it's not for completion of, it might include street trees. So I do think the situation you described is a little disingenuous. There's no bond, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, there's no bond that we have, that our town requires to any individual developer to complete a building to a specific standard.
Jeff, I think what he's talking about is Boxwood was bonded. All the
Yes,
other streets were
I
not.
agree, yeah.
And there are a lot of other streets there that are dug up and not paved.
Yes.
So
Boxwood
we have
was-
no mechanism
Yes.
for finishing those.
But
Boxwood was a common
I guess there's a
road.
misunderstanding based on this landscaping thing, that it's not related to landscaping, except for street trees. And, we have to rely on the developer to finish the lots and the structures according to what his contracts are.
And in any plan, residential
I'm not
plan-
saying not to pursue this. I'm just saying that I don't want to leave the impression that we can require a bond that finishes the whole project to an nth degree, that is apart from the infrastructure and the street trees.
And the
I
planning
mean,
board
that's-
comes before.
Am I
Well,
wrong?
my interest is, getting the roads done,
Yes.
curbing, the drainage to work.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, the other things are, the homeowners hunt
Yes.
to some extent. But, for our investors, make damn sure that when our customers drive in there, that it looks nice and it's finished.
Excuse
Mr.
me.
Hale,
The
you
drainage.
chose to sell it to these folks.
Excuse-
You chose to,
There's nothing
you made a contract with these folks. We have had a contract with you. You made a contract with these folks. If these were your concerns, then one would have thought when you sold it to them, you would have made provisions for such a thing.
And the provisions are in the permit.
Provisions are in the permit, and he sold it to them with an assignment of the
Subject to the
obligations under the permit.
But
Yeah,
it's not-
Excuse me, Attorney Para, I didn't ask you to identify yourself, and I need it for the record, and I apologize.
Alex Parra, the Augustine Living Parent Network.
Okay. And in the rear again, Mr.
Sawyer.
Sawyer.
I'd like to bring up one more matter that's related to landscaping before it gets too late.
Because we were talking about landscaping.
Yeah, we were, and a very
Yeah,
good issue
yeah.
came up, but we got kind of hijacked the landscaping. The other half of the landscaping is being able to water the damn thing, and we can't water it
Why not?
because we're not allowed to use town water.
Why are you not allowed to use town water?
Number 52 says the applicant shall irrigate the project landscape with either irrigation wells or, if permitted by DEP, use water processed by the sewage treatment facility. And the last month I've been told that I cannot use town water to water my yard.
Told by whom?
Mr. Gallagher.
Okay, I'm going to read the zoning enforcement officer's comments. He's not here tonight, but he sent in some comments. Wildflower Meadows, 15 Great Road. The final stages of the project are nearing completion, with 7 of the 56 for sale, single-family dwelling, detached residential condominiums still under construction. Of concern prior to the completion of the project is as follows. 1, street parking. There appears to be an increased amount of street parking which is prohibited under the host community agreement, condition 41. Prior to the completion of the project, there needs to be a clear understanding that this is not allowed. Number 2, enclosures, special permit condition number 9. The special permit prohibits enclosures, yet a significant number of homeowners have erected fences. By definition, this is an enclosure. Prior to completion of the project, these enclosures must be removed. Exhibit F of the special permit indicates certain completion items such as lamp posts, plantings, and pervious walkways. The developer indicates that the landscape plans he submitted for Board of Appeals approval does not show these details. It is my understanding that Exhibit F was introduced in lieu of marking the locations on the approved landscape plan because the magnitude of detail that would be lost on the plan. My argument is that since they are shown in detail in Exhibit F and described in Condition 12, they are required. Trash barrels, Condition 89E, are required to be stored inside the garages except only on collection days. Now, a reference was made to the planning board and the bonding requirements, and our decision says that we are entitled to ask for a bond similar to what the planning board does. I will tell you that the planning board has never, in its history, taken a tri-party agreement or an insurance company bond. The planning board requires, in every instance in this town, a cash bond. And we are entitled to do what the planning board does. I'm very concerned, when I drove down there today, I was very concerned about the amount of washout that's going on because of the rains we've had, but how much of the construction is still under construction and underway. And in light of Roland's letter that the project is nearing completion, I think the comments of the attorney and Mr. Hale are valid comments that need to be looked at. I'm asking this board to allow me to continue the hearing. We can come, we don't have to wait for another whole month, but we need to get to town council. Pardon?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. So you just said that the town has never taken a insurance bond. And you also said that the only thing is cash surety.
I said that's what the planning board does. I
But what
agree
do-
with Mr. Parra that the statute doesn't say that.
So what did we do at the beginning of this project?
I don't know what you did at the beginning of the project.
We put up cash,
You put up $2 million?
yes. So every penny for every dollar of infrastructure was in an account. There's still a tiny little bit left because we owe the completion of Boxwood behind Building 3 to the emergency way and the street trees. And there's money at Enterprise Bank that's held for that purpose. And, you know, we're close to being finished, but it's reasonable to want to know that.
So Boxwood is your responsibility. That's close to being finished. All of the drainage is done, all of the conservation and detention and stormwater management is all close to done, and you have enough in your cash bond to complete it.
Yes, yeah, the only thing we have left to do is that last stretch of boxwood and some street trees. And we have the funds at Enterprise Bank.
But all of the interior roads, as I said, Hyssop and Buttercup and all those were yours and your responsibility to do, and we never asked you for a bond of any sort.
We have money allocated in our loan that is sitting in our loan at East Boston Savings Bank for the completion of the roads. So
We need
that
to
has
look at
not been
this.
exhausted.
We need to look at this. I'm sorry, but we need to look at this.
That's okay.
I would like, Shelley, can you get us permission to present to town council for a question and see if we can get Ed Marchant to the next meeting?
I have a question or a couple
Yes,
of
sir.
seconds.
Identify yourself for the
Sure.
record.
My name is Toshi Sakota. I live at 7 Cameo Lane in Wildflower. I guess going to the thing about the bond, I guess you could read in there and interpret how that is, but it seemed like, at least for protection of the homeowners, it's my reading of it, it implies that there would be a bond or some surety of some sort for the completion of the entire project. It says, And you have to look at, I don't know how the defined terms are, there's a lot of capitalized terms here, I assume are defined, but somewhere, I don't know where they are exactly, but I read that as, you know, that to complete the construction project, meaning the phases or whatever, that there needs to be a surety or something set aside, not just for the roads and the trees or whatever, for the street trees or whatever, but for all of the homes, everything, the whole project, the whole phase. With regards to the question on landscaping, if on page 13, there's a section that was, which was brought up before, but it says there, let's see, in addition to the permit, prior to issuance of permits, let's see, within the for sale component, the applicant shall submit to the building commissioner a unit development plan that is substantially in the same form, depicts substantially the same features, i.e. landscaping, as the sample attached hereto as Exhibit F.
So,
I mean, my interpretation of that would be substantially similar. Yeah, there can be some deviation, but.
So Mr. Gallagher has told us he has submitted such plans, and he wasn't aware he needed to follow that plans, and up till now, they had been approved by Roland, and he was here looking for clarity on what we wanted him to do. And we're telling him we want him to improve it.
I would like to echo to what Mr. Yates said, and that is, relative to the individual units, once there is some consensus of the board as to how much landscaping is required, we will give building inspector direction so that he won't issue the occupancy permit until the landscaping is adhered to, and that's the homeowner's assurance that the units, the EUAs, will be done, because he won't get an occupancy permit and the buyer won't buy. The EUA isn't something that he's got to come back and do later after the season sets or after the last unit is up. Once he sells a unit, that becomes the homeowner's responsibility, so
I think
we
we're
just have
talking
to
about the
clarify.
ones that have already been sold.
On the ones that have already been sold, we're going to have some difficulty, and that's why I want counsel in here. I have to say I have some respect for the very real problem that some people landscape and landscape differently than others, and each of us has a different idea for what we want to have on our lawns or in our yards. I happen to like dandelions and wildflowers, and my gardener friend here likes very manicured things. But that's neither here nor there. We should have thought about it when we approved the project. We should have thought about having a central landscaping company and lawns mowed and putting it right in the condo fees. But if you had that going on, your condo fees might be cost prohibitive. So right now, I think we need to adjourn to get council's input. I think we need to be practical in the units that have already sold in a way that we're not disappointing anybody, but I'm not sure this is a zoning board problem as much as it is a condominium association problem in terms of upkeeping your property so your neighbors' units are all kept reasonably.
I had one more question.
Yes,
too.
sir.
I'm hoping to get clarified. I don't know. In bottom page 12, it says plans approved to each lots for sale components. Erosion control plan, what does that mean? I'm just curious.
So that the soil doesn't run off into the road.
Okay, because my yard, and this is maybe more from Mark, it's running all over the place, and it's starting to collapse, actually. There's cracks in it, and it's just, and I don't know how I'm gonna maintain that, because it's right into the street.
Have you talked to Mr. Gallagher
I did
about it?
email him about it. I haven't had a response. Now it's been a couple days. But
Do you have a lawn, or are you still seeding?
Still seating.
Okay, so it is not.
Here's a back lawn. Here's a side lawn. His right-hand side enters out into the fire turnaround.
And then my
The front lawn is the one he's concerned about.
And when did
Yes.
they seed your yard recently after?
Yeah.
So
and
the
then we
rains
had
will
the
wash it
heavy
all?
rain, yeah.
But it was supposed to be hydro-seeded, and it was just sprinkled seed all over. It's very, it was not
Correct.
done sufficiently.
Right, so what we're trying to do is to get erosion control in place.
So we use
And
a
then we-
special seed.
Yeah, I mean, speaking back to one of the questions that was asked about the water, we were told by the Littleton Water District, when we first started to construct units, that we had to use a seed with a blue coating on it, which is drought resistant on the project, which we've been using. And we were also told that folks couldn't wash their cars in the yard. They couldn't, other than initial growth, when we seeded or hydro-seeded, that other than to gain initial growth, they could not use the public water supply to water their lawns.
Perhaps we need to get the water department in here to talk to us about
That's fine.
this.
I just repeated what we were
Because it doesn't
told.
seem reasonable that you
I
can't
understand.
water your yard.
I understand.
I'm sorry, I mean, and what good is it planting a bunch of plants if you can't water them?
Or grass.
Or grass. So we need to get the water department in here and
Actually,
address
we
it.
just need, I don't mean to contradict you, but we just need Shelley to write a letter to the water department to get clarification on that. We'll get a letter from
I
them.
mean, if I may interject, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It says the applicant, not the owners. The applicant shall irrigate the project landscape with either irrigation wells, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't say anything what the owners can do.
So I think.
Can or can't, if it's,
Right, right.
I
Can't
always
we
look at
just
stuff, if it doesn't say you
interpret that
can't, you can.
No,
Nowhere
there's-
in here does it say the owners can't water their yard. So, to me, that's pretty straightforward.
They came in. The water district came in when we started in phase one.
Then I would ask them to
No,
show
I'm
you
just
the,
telling-
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so, but as a developer, I think.
The question is the owner the condo association? Because.
Yeah, who pays for that?
Individual unit owners pay for them, there's individual,
So-
there's individual meters.
So you
But
would
they
have to.
came in when we first started in phase one, and we hydro-seeded, and they said, other than the initial startup of the grass, you cannot use hoses to wash your cars or to
That the
water the
owners
lawns.
couldn't.
No, they said nobody no.
So,
Well, how can they do that? There's no bylaw in town requiring.
I don't know the
allowing
answer to
that.
your question.
So let's get
But
it from them.
we're not allowed to install irrigation systems.
I don't, well, I don't think they
Doesn't
can
say
do
that.
that.
Okay.
Let's get it.
it says here in 52 that you can have irrigation well, or you can use the water from the sewage treatment plant, which I'm sure people don't want to do. But they mean basically would require you to have a separate water system other than the domestic water for taking care of irrigation.
Right, well, now, David, you could speak about this, I think, because you put in an irrigation well in order to water you have an irrigation system around the apartments, I believe, am I correct?
So we have an irrigation well, and the DEP does not allow you to use the wastewater to irrigate around residential buildings.
So, but this doesn't, these are individual homes, and I don't understand how the water department can not allow. I mean, the water department can tell us that there's a drought and not to water our yards on certain days, and they tell us that town-wide, and that's certainly their purview. But I don't think they can just say
You can
that
get
you're.
clarification so they can water their lawns?
Well,
Do you
we'll have a
have,
letter.
do you have a place to put an irrigation well to service all these homes anywhere on the property? There's probably not a
Wouldn't that
square
have
inch
been in
left.
like a structure, street structure, because you'd have to run water lines,
Yeah,
and that would
that's-
have been in a.
It's on piping.
Except that the water department views this as a condominium, not individual homes,
I don't know.
and it may or may not have enough capacity. I don't know where it's looped or whether it's got enough
Just
pressure.
came in in the beginning, and they said specifically,
Well, we'll have to
we
get
could
it.
only run water when we were initially starting the lawns.
Then we're gonna have to get an answer from the water
Let
department.
Shelley ask.
And all we've done is
about it.
repeat
Because-
what they told us.
Because that doesn't seem reasonable.
I understand, but
People have to
They
be
are
able.
who they are.
I mean, what good is it if you plant a plant and they can't water it?
So,
I said earlier.
So let's let Shelley ask the water department if they say that at the committee.
Yeah.
there are other things brought up by you, and I don't know if Roland mentioned in his letter, and this is the issue about adding onto your home and finishing existing space.
Yeah,
And I think the board, we will have a meeting and talk about that, but the short answer is we did not.
I'm sorry, I didn't
We
understand.
did not plan for anyone adding on to their homes.
That's in condition 8 says that
Yeah.
you can't.
And we have had in the past specific requests to finish space within 40B, single-family 40Bs, but it's a case-by-case basis. And it impacts it impacts the septic, it impacts a lot of things. And so the assumption is the owner should have is no, unless you,
Well, they're not coming to us.
okay.
That's,
They're
you
just
know,
doing it.
Exactly. It's not. so
Which
I
is,
was
of
asked
course,
to
without
ask
a
the
building
question-
permit is illegal.
I was
Yeah.
asked to ask the question this evening, excuse me one second. I was asked to ask the question this evening when we met with Shelley and Roland. So it was a question so that the condo association, when it is turned over, understands that there is a clear path to doing this, what can or cannot be done, because Shelley related just before I came in here that they were on the property earlier this week, and that they had gone to look at a unit owner that was finishing his basement. You know, the association, and probably 55 of the, 56 possible owners, don't know that this is going on. So what happens in the association is, every ounce of space that you finish changes your size of your unit, changes your condo fees, and that, I think, may be a reason why people are avoiding. So they come, they buy, whether it be affordable buyers or whether it be market rate buyers, and then they go about changing, enhancing the inside of the shell of the house without permits, is what I understand. So it has nothing to do with us, because we understand our obligations. We have a list of things that can and can't do.
They should certainly understand when they go to resale, if they're not caught then, when they go to resale, it will be an issue, and they will not be able to sell their
So
house
this
without
is
ripping it
more,
back out.
less of a question by the builder, because I'm not involved. More of a question by your staff as to, what, I guess, is the teeth, or what is the, what, in all of the condominiums that I've ever been involved with, a unit owner's responsibility has come to the condo association to ask permission for a building permit. Generally speaking, there are two signatories on the building permit. There would be a signatory for the owner, and there would be a signatory by the condominium association to allow it to get a permit from the town. If a unit owner was to make improvements to a building, add bedrooms, which is against our bedroom count with David for what we've purchased, then they would not be allowed to do that. Work within that, and they would not be allowed to. But they're not being joined, right? So they're either not getting permits to do the work, or they are getting permits, and this was the first tonight that I heard that anybody had secured a permit outside of the association to do improvements.
That
So
wasn't got a permit, but
we
we
got-
know of other cases that they have. We've seen sheet rock being carried in, we've seen wood, and we've stopped and asked, and said, we're not doing anything, and slam the doors.
Well, certainly in single-family houses, you've ordered cease and desist, you've posted cease and desist orders.
It says in the decision number 7, the attic or basement may be finished as part of the original construction or subject to a building permit at any time thereafter, provided the finished space may never be used as a sleeping area. So clearly, our decision requires a building permit for finishing space. Your condo documents should likewise require, and maybe you need to amend your condo documents to say prior to any sale, they have to have a condo trustee inspection, as they do in many condo projects, and if that's a finished space without permission, they have to rip it out.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna say one more time, this is not my builder issue. I was asked to ask for
So
direction
that's-
this evening on several topics, just like the trash cans is not a builder issue. And
Well, I think
some of these others.
that Mr. Hale negotiated that provision as part of this decision, and we all talked about it. As long as we kept it not a sleeping area, it wouldn't be counted in the bedroom count for your treatment plant
Right, because each one of these units is deed restricted as to the
as,
number.
as to the number of bedrooms. That's right, but we all said, and I remember it, people need playrooms or rec rooms or a place to send the kids if you need to have them shut up and you need some quiet time, or you're having guests, So we all said that
Can we all
was.
tell you have 4 kids?
That was, reasonable. But as long as they weren't sleeping areas, and I think the condo documents were supposed to parrot that. I got a lot of nodding back here, you like what I'm saying.
The thing is,
Hi,
though,
kids.
yeah, you have to have a building permit in order to make sure it's safe and has proper egresses, and it's safe. We had an example over off Goldsmith, that development at the time, where people were coming back to us to ask to finish playrooms, rec rooms, whatever. And we were very cognizant of that in this decision. But on the other hand, you have to have building permits, because otherwise you go to sell it, I'm talking as a real estate broker, you go to sell it, the people are gonna go down to the building inspector, they're gonna look for a permit, they're gonna see there's no permit there, your sale is gonna come to a grinding halt, and you're suddenly going to, bank appraisers are going to say, no, 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 and you cannot sell your property. You're gonna have to rip it back out, so keep that in mind, folks. Just get a building permit, do it right.
I have another question here in the front. Identify yourself, please, first.
David Roth, I'm at 5 Camille. So just a quick comment, is that if there was a mechanism as a owner to get a lot of this information, that would be helpful. Stuff as like how much we're supposed to be watering, parking, trash cans. We did get the condo documents when we did close, but it's about 60 pages long. So as a practical matter, whether or not they're in there, the stuff that's important, it would be helpful for the condo association, which I guess right now is over there.
Are you forming an
address.
association?
So to speak to David, David's a new buyer of an affordable unit, and every unit owner in there gets a once-a-month email that speaks about problems. So after Gary and Fern came in and brought to our attention that there were a myriad of owners in there that weren't cutting their lawns, we sent out an email. When they brought to our attention that trash cans were being left outside, we sent out the same email, and it went to every single, as far as we know, they gave us all their email addresses, every single owner. When the fire department comes down and talks to us about parking on Boxwood, which they've done, and the police department comes down, we send out an email to all the unit owners to say, you can't park on Boxwood, you can't park, there's parking.
Mark, I need to just stop you for a minute. I know you have a very competent attorney who has.
Well, we didn't expect to have an
a boilerplate set of rules and
they're all-
regulations, which is
he
what
has
this
them.
gentleman's
They have
asking
them.
for, a single or
They already have them.
four-pager,
They
and
have
it should have all of this in it, and you should have a condo association or a management company enforcing it by actually knocking on doors and sending around a letter to the offender saying, if you don't cease and desist, it's a $100 a day fine. I see it all the time.
I know you're.
You just need to be vigilant about
I
doing
know
that.
you're still working on it, still building, but you've got enough sold that I think you really need to go ahead and put that association out there and get them going if you can.
We were trying.
Yeah.
That was the purpose of.
Well, it looks
of
like
our
you got a
first
nice
meeting.
association right here, and everyone that showed up today is interested in probably being on such an association if they came out at this time of night. So you might have a nice little starter panel right here.
You had a follow-up.
Oh, so, just wanted to follow up. Yes, we have received the emails, but, from my perspective, they didn't seem like monthly condo letters. They were just kind of, put your trash can in letters. So, again, as a practical thing, what would be helpful would be, this is what we talked to the board about. This is what the rules are for watering. This is your.
I can't speak to the rules about watering, David, because you know what? They told me.
We're gonna get that
you can't do
somewhere
it.
else. All right, we're gonna
So
get
I
that
just passed
somewhere
the word
else.
along to
That's
everybody.
done.
You know,
We're
why
past-
let you get in trouble? That's my whole point.
All right, I would like to see your rules and regulations at our next meeting. I would just like to see what the printed rules and
We'll
regulations
have
look like.
we'll send you over the condo doc.
That would be great. No, I don't want all the condo documents, I can look those up online. I want the rules and regulations that you pass out to your buyers. And I would hope that they contain some of the requirements and restrictions that we have in here, as well as others that you've created to make your community a loving, wonderful place to be.
Even if you just like did a bullet point of the major issues, because like you said, it's 60 pages. If you bullet point like a 1-page, most important things going on is what you need to know coming in, so that everybody can live a little bit more respectful of each other, understanding and being educated on what's happening.
My name
Yes.
is Dolly Stubble. I live at 10 Buttercup Lane. And I think as far as the completion is concerned, my concern is because of the kids. There are a lot of kids around there, just for safety purposes. That's it.
I have to say, I haven't driven in there for, I don't know, months and months and months. And I went there tonight for this hearing, and I was quite amazed at how much is done. I thought a lot more landscaping was done than my board members, agree with, but then again, I'm not a landscape person.
We have been plantings around the foundation.
But I was terribly disturbed by the back-end construction, and I think I was on Buttercup, and it might have been your children. There was a couple little girls on bikes, and I was thinking that, gee, I can't even really turn around easily, and where are those girls, and I hope I don't hit them. And it was just, it's a tight project, and it's made even tighter by the fact that it's not yet stabilized. So I would be looking to see some.
The road you drove up is stabilized.
What, no, I went all the way,
Oh,
I
the
went all the way to the
camp.
back end. Went to the back end. But I was impressed for the most part, and I'd like to see it finish and
Mr.
be as
Gallaty,
nice as the
you
front.
build a beautiful home.
Thank you.
And we all agree on that?
And none of them are complaining about the houses, trust me. We don't hear that complaint.
Okay,
But
I
you know,
think
they're
there's
all my,
something we have to
they're all my
address.
customers, so enforcing rules on your customers is extremely difficult. Enforcing fines on people that just spent $500,000
I know.
on a house.
I
That's
know,
why you
none
need
of
an
us like-
association, so they can do the dirty work.
We're trying.
None of us like rules.
But that's why it goes back to the education of when they're closing, giving them the straight, like, to get them ahead, ahead of the game, knowing what they're to expect coming in.
Okay, in the rear, I had someone.
Yep, this is Shri from 3 Boxwood Drive. So I just want to put digressing a little bit. I want to have a question for the board. If you can give us a guidance on the fencing rules, or is there a plan to revisit, the fencing rules so that
Do you have a fence?
No,
we don't.
You want a
So
fence?
We want a fence. We have little
Why do you want a
kids.
fence?
We have little kids, and soon they'll be 2 years, and they'll be running around. And our house is right at the Boxwood Drive, so we want some guidance in terms of how to approach this.
Roland's right in that the decision says no enclosures, so I think that's something the board maybe needs to drive through the
I'm willing to
development and talk
reconsider
about.
that.
Because,
But there might need to be more guidance on what kind of fence.
Or how high, because
How
they're
high,
like
the
fortresses in
material.
there.
Yeah,
I mean, a
just
chain link, a 6-foot chain link fence
Right.
is just not a something someone wants to be next to.
1 second, disorder.
I believe there is wording in the condo doc saying that fences are allowed as long as they're not above a certain height in the backyard and up to a certain height in the
But,
front yard.
but in the
So
decision,
yes,
but in the
there is a
decision,
conflict
it's,
there.
it's not permitted. Your name again for the,
Karen.
and then, I haven't heard from you yet.
I have a question. So
Your
there are
name,
fences,
please. I'm so-
Julia Barata. There's fences there already. And like Fern said, the condo docs dictate what kind of fence you have, but it sounds
Permit
contradictory.
says none. So we got a little conflict there, so we gotta figure it
So what
out.
happens to the fences that are there and the people that want to put them up?
I hate to tell you this, if
I
this,
don't have a fence.
if this board says so, they have to come down, then they have to come down.
No, is
I-
an enclosure if it closes all the way around though? Like what if they just did, if it's one piece, is that still considered?
I think we need to, we're gonna have to discuss it and revisit it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if we agree with Roland, then they have to come down. On the other hand, we're pretty reasonable folks.
So how would
So-
you, and this is just curious, I don't have a fence, I don't want a fence, but how would you enforce something like that? You're gonna go knock on
The
the door?
association is going to have to
Oh, the
enforce it.
association would, okay.
Is going to have to enforce it.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am. You're
I
new.
do have
Oh,
a fence.
Name, please, and,
Monica Chumash.
Thank you.
I do have a fence and I requested permission from the condominium association and I called the town before the fence was placed. And the town answer was, this is a private property and you can do in your property as you will have as soon as you follow the condo rules.
You still need a permit.
So I would like this to be considered in the town discussion when this happens.
so that's something Attorney Para was very good about recommending, is that we're going to postpone all the discussion and decisions on these things till the next meeting. And at the next meeting, we'll post it and perhaps even go as far as notifying all of the residents to make sure you all get notice
And
that
making
it's
sure we have
really
a big
happening.
room downstairs.
Yeah, I will appreciate the notification as I did not get this notification.
There was no notification. This was just going to be an informal administrative
Yes,
discussion, and
do
now I want to
understand
schedule a hearing.
Other two houses have fences, and I believe they're not here.
Yeah.
And we pay quite some money for those, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have kids
All of
too?
them go to
Yeah,
town
we do
before.
have kids, yeah, and the other people have dogs, and they do have small kids.
Do you know
here.
who you called in the town?
I do not remember, but I can ask my husband if he remembers. We were the first houses
Yeah.
we built. We are
Yeah.
the very first phase, and I believe, I don't know, we were, the third, fourth, I don't remember, Mark, we moved there, and,
You were the second to last to build your fence.
So only-
First
it's-
was down near
Okay.
So we,
Mike and,
now w's the issue with trash cans? Just out of curiosity, what's going on with the trash can thing?
People leave them out in the driveway.
Are any of you the people that are leaving them out?
To leave them out until you come back home.
I mean, they're out on the day that, the
Yes,
trash day,
yes,
but then.
Is anyone else leaving them out all the time?
I leave mine out behind the back of my house. I wasn't aware, and I did read the condo docs and highlight a lot of things, but I wasn't aware that it actually, or maybe I just glossed over that piece, it actually has to be in the garage.
We shouldn't be micromanaging trash cans at this
No, I'm
board
just
level.
curious.
That's not in our
I'm
decision.
just curious.
It is in the decision.
It is in the
Trash
decision.
cans?
Yes, it does specify they will be
I don't
inside.
understand how a garbage can becomes a health issue. I know someone mentioned it was a health concern, unless someone's going in the garbage cans. should-
Well, animals,
Animals.
rodents,
Knock
things like
them
that.
down.
They get knocked over, trash spills.
And then just
that
the
kind of-
aesthetics. I imagine a lot of condo
Yeah.
rules are basically based on aesthetics.
Right.
And, when does one can turn into two cans in a box? And that's where I keep my recyclables, and
for
pretty much
example,
the back of the house is a dump.
I know for a fact that we, as a board, did not put that in there.
It is
I
in
know
there.
that.
Yeah, it is in there.
No, I know it's in there. I'm not saying, but we didn't think of it. We didn't think of it here. They thought of it, having done other associations.
Oh, sure, I'm sure.
So,
did not
and
put that.
they proposed it to us, and it sounds good to us, and it makes sense, because if you have 3 trash cans out there and someone's dog's knocking them over, and you're not being responsible about cleaning it up.
You know, it absolutely makes sense. I was
That's a
just saying
condo
I wasn't
association issue.
wasn't
Yeah,
realizing
condo.
it behind my house.
Let's talk about
Okay.
something else.
I
Yeah, but it
recognize
says
you.
to
The chair
include
has
in the
to.
condo association.
It
It says
says
to
the
include in the
chair
condo
has to recognize
association.
you.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, your name first.
My name is Shiva, I live in Boardc. So this is not a complaint or something, I know probably in future they might do it, but there is a huge slants and rocks in the landscaping closer to, or like opposite of Boardc Lane, I guess. I'm just worried because I have a small kid that he could just run around and fall down easily. If it's not a slant, but a smooth one, it would be preferable.
Ledge.
No, we can't move it. Your child is gonna learn to climb it and call himself the king of the mountain. Just have to be careful till he's old enough.
Somebody else is struggling.
All right, I think we've done enough for tonight, we're starting to get silly.
Yeah.
Do you want us to try to come back in 2 weeks, or can you wait a month for this?
Oh, please, let's wait a month.
There'll be
Yeah, no, I
vacations.
don't, I think, we thought tonight was gonna be an informative discussion. It's turned into being something that you need legal counsel.
Extremely informative.
We didn't come with legal counsel because we
Yeah.
didn't know,
Yeah.
So,
Let's do it at our next regular meeting in August.
can we get a,
When is
can we get a,
17th, August 17th.
can we get, like we did during the time of the approval, can we get a subset of the board to workshop with us so that it would work towards efficient use of your time in a month? Maybe we could get 3 board members like we did last time. We could get a couple of unit owners, and we could workshop this 2 or 3 times together between now and then, just to flesh out, some of these things have nothing to do with you, but I was asked to talk about them tonight. Clearly, we got one answer, was there's no additions. I can go back to the couple of unit owners that wanted to do that. But the other things, we'd like to get some direction. I don't mind waiting a month. We're going to pave Morning Glory Circle during then, and the other, I forget the other. ISOP. During that period of time, and we're gonna do our street trees on the first phase. So that will be done by the time, hopefully, we come back, but I'd just like to get maybe we could get a subset like we did last time.
I have one question, though, before, because one of these issues is this issue of the bond and this and that. Are you planning any closings within the next month?
We have a closing tomorrow. Then we don't have any more closings.
I guess I should say, are you planning any certificate of
No,
occupancy?
we're probably 2 to 4 weeks off with our next.
Well, because absent this bond issue being resolved, we can say to the building, commissioner to not approve
Yeah,
any CO.
but he's already got us on hold.
Okay.
So he had us on hold.
But
He allowed us to get the last permit just as a foundation only, because when you drove in there across from the clubhouse, we can't grade that entire slope and stabilize it till we had that last foundation put in.
Yeah,
So he just
okay.
gave us permission to put the foundation only in. So essentially, we have that on hold. And to answer your question, our next round of occupancies would be 2 to 4 weeks out.
Well, but that falls within.
Yeah, but I think if we workshop,
I don't want to leave a family sitting on the street. And I certainly don't want to stop a closing that's happening tomorrow morning.
That's not stopped. They've got their CO. They're going to close tomorrow morning.
So,
yeah, that's not an issue.
And when
The
you
others
say
will come out.
2 to 4 weeks out, 2 to 4 weeks out to, not to the closing date, but to working on your CO.
Yeah, and it takes 2 weeks.
So he said he could wait 4 weeks to have this happen. I'm reluctant to appoint a sub,
You're gonna finish them anyway.
Sherry, what
So-
we asked for in the meeting was a list of what's remaining to be done, just so that, as they're requesting COs, we can see that they've been making progress towards completing.
So you're not gonna get that tonight.
yeah,
You
what's
know,
that?
especially
You
the
could get that
project.
to
No,
us.
you're not gonna get that
Construction
tonight
roads.
because you've asked us to go back to places. You
No,
know, on
but
the ones
forget
that are
about
already
the,
occupied.
forget about the landscaping just for a second. I'm more worried about the road infrastructure. I'm worried about landscaping too, but that's resolvable. Everybody's here has said that's resolvable. They want a little garden or a big garden or
Whatever it
a
is.
shade tree. I'm worried about the infrastructure, and I think what Shelley is asking for is, can you identify what's left to be done on the infrastructure? The finish coat paving, the drainage, any
So
detention
we didn't,
basins?
we had nothing to do with the master drainage. That's all
I
part
know
of
that,
our.
I know that.
No,
Right,
but-
so our drainage manholes are all in. They're all functioning. They all feed into Boxwood. Boxwood feeds into all the ponds. That's not our responsibility. We help
Well,
pay for that.
Curbs and
We have, the curbing, from memory, the curbing is on Boxwood and they just installed it except for the distance from the end of the
No.
third building up. I don't believe there's any curbing that we have, David.
Yes, there is. The drainage won't work if you don't have curbing.
Okay.
It's
All
on the
your- all
plan.
If there's
streets
curbing
need
on the plan,
curbing.
then
Yeah.
they will install it, when we do it.
Is it helpful, David, for you to make me a list of what you think needs to be done and let him compare your list with his list? Because his curbing does affect your drainage.
You know, if this were a planning board, you'd have a civil engineer make you a list. I'm not a civil engineer.
No, I'm sorry, I would have the developer make the list and then I would
Give
send
you
it
a
out
list.
for peer review.
Well,
We'll give you a list, you can send it out.
whatever, so, you know, I can put together a list, but again, I'm not a civil engineer.
I get
And
it.
as Mark said, you know, they blasted the site, they changed the
Yeah.
grades of the roads and whatnot, so, you know, I think it all works.
Mark, make us a list, and
Just
then
make
if
us a
we
list.
think we need
And
peer
can you
review,
put-
we'll send it out for peer
Can you
review.
put some dates on when you expect to
No
do
problem.
these kind of things and whatever, I don't know what such lists usually have. Do they usually have a dollar amount associated with them?
They can, yeah, I mean, we have top coat to do, curbing, if David says we have curbing. I haven't stared at the plan for a long time.
And you have
And we
some-
have street trees.
And I think you have some common area in the back end of things that needs some attention.
That's all in EAUs. EAUs touch everywhere. So we have really no
All right.
common corridor. The common corridors are up off the back.
Okay.
Where David has
Where you
already
think
put in
you're done.
the trees.
There's a gentleman here that's got a question. Excuse
My
me,
name is
Cheryl.
Sudhir Reddy, and I'm from Prettyson, Boxwood. And adjacent to my lot, I don't know if it's a common area, I don't know if it's a EAU, but the storm drain is literally open beside my house.
Without a,
No
without
pitch,
a
no top?
grade on it,
There is. Where's that?
okay?
Lot 56 did.
Yeah, okay, so lot 50.
Take a look at that tomorrow.
Storm scepter.
Yeah.
I have a question, and this, I
That
don't know
sounds
who
dangerous.
this
No,
question
there's
is
a
for,
couple.
really.
Excuse me, I have a woman speaking.
So, the drainage plan, I guess my house is on Boxwood, it's on the corner, and right now, the way the road is, the water never actually makes the drain. There's always a huge puddle just before the drain, because the way it comes down levels off. It never,
On Boxwood?
yeah.
I think that might have to do with some curbing too, needing to channel
Curbing's
it.
in on Boxwood.
It's like a splash pond, I mean, that
That's
probably
Mr.
goes
Hale's
over.
area.
They just paved. So I don't know if
I
it's
mean,
rained
that, no,
since then.
it's been like that the whole, every time it rains, but I think, I'm just bringing it up because everyone's talking about the drainage plan, that's certainly something that's not draining.
Well, it's been raining the last couple of days, and they're saying they just changed it because they paved. Is it still doing
No,
that?
it's been like this the entire time, and it's not because of
But
rain.
the finished paving just went in, did it just go in?
Friday.
Yeah, so maybe it's different now.
Mark,
It's
and we've,
not, I live there, that's
Then
not,
you- would
just
you-
Well,
bringing it
but
up.
the finished paving was done like 2 or 3 days ago.
but it's been raining.
No, it's
Okay.
not, it was done more than that,
Yes.
2 weeks.
at least.
Then could you address that individually with the building inspector's office?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
he can address whether or not that something needs to be fixed like that.
I mean, I actually did call him at some point in the beginning when I first moved there, and the building inspector put me in touch with the other Mark. I think his name is Mark Brooks. Yes.
And if Mark Brooks isn't being responsive, and Mr. Hale isn't being responsible, and that's their territory, then go back to the building inspector and say,
Gotcha. Again, I was just mentioning because there's always talk
no,
about
that-
the.
you need to know the venue. That's the
Right,
venue
okay.
for that. We can't,
So some of,
we're little volunteers here.
No, I get that, just.
some of that is that there needs to be curbing on the side streets to direct the water to the basins.
That's what I meant to say when I said curbing. Let's
So-
get a list from Mark Gallagher. We're not design engineers here. I want a list from you. If necessary, I'd have places created. If we have questions on it, we'll have to send it out for peer review at your cost, because it's part of all of this. There may not be any questions. It may be a case of you're in construction, and that's normal, but we'll see.
Okay.
And then we'll come back in a month. I will entertain your question about a subcommittee only after the next hearing, because I want the full board to continue to participate, and we don't know what the subcommittee should be subcommitteeing until we hear from town
subcommittee-
council what we need to,
Can I ask
what
you-
we can and can't do with
Can
you.
we subcommittee on the landscaping with them? On
Before the month is up?
On the little EAUs, on the individual units.
Bring to you, we had something to actually,
Yeah, that would be probably a productive
That's all.
course of
Can-
action.
really more.
That's my
Can
major
we
goal
do
there.
that?
Application.
We just want to be done.
And I'll talk to Scott Larson and see what the
Not Scott, it's Kevin Hunt.
okay.
The
oh, that's
water
right.
department.
I'll talk
Yeah.
to Kevin and find out what they're
So
thinking
who
on
wants to
that.
be on a subcommittee? I think I need 3 of you.
I'll do it.
Julian,
And Jeff.
Cheryl, and,
Do I want to be?
oh, Jeff.
Come on, Jeff.
I was on the other one, so I guess maybe it would be.
Yeah, probably good to bring that.
So,
Some history.
I hate to be a pain in the neck, but can you give some clarity in terms of, in the month, there's 7 occupancy permits left, is what I.
We don't- He's not getting the occupancy permits until we've got this next meeting. Did you want to schedule a date for the subcommittee meeting?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to the owners because I want to get a representation there as well, so we can all work collectively towards the end.
Can I ask for a show of hands of anyone here that might
There
want
are
to be on
gonna
that landscaping
There's 50 of them that are going to want to be on it.
subcommittee?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've already started to talk about forming a board. The reason that we stumbled was because Gary brought forth these questions. You know, what we don't want to do is be a Graniteville. I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on there, but they have significant litigation, which would shut off all refinancing, very difficult for all these unit owners.
Okay, so-
Over similar situations, so.
So
Everyone's gonna be reasonable, right?
you're going to ask Shelley to schedule the subcommittee meeting. She needs to post it, and you'll coordinate with the 3 members that volunteered, Jillian, Jeff, and Cheryl. Thank you, volunteers.
I have one more question. How will the homeowners become aware of this subcommittee
We'll publish everything.
in like an email or something?
Yeah, we have a master email.
Okay.
You can email it.
Yeah,
Remember-
we'll put the subcommittee
Mark.
meeting notice on
Mark,
us
this
on
is a
him.
subcommittee, so we're not going to be sitting here with 50 owners.
No, I'm going to just pick a couple of 3 owners. I just think that we have phase 1, phase 2, you know, it's just like when we try to, you know, assemble the board for a learning session, you know, we want to have 5 individuals that represent, not for this, but represent the community. So, I mean, we'll pick a couple or 3 people, and Mark and I, and we'll be off and running. You know, I'll probably have cases come just because they need to have, you know, the direction which you'd like to do.
Okay. I would like a motion to continue the discussion on this property till the next month's meeting.
Do we wanna, are we continuing the discussion, or are we posting a hearing?
We're continuing the discussion, and the Lawyer will tell us if we need to post it as a hearing. We're going to post a hearing, but we're going to continue the discussion through a posted hearing. How's that?
I make a motion, we continue the hearing on August, what is it?
17th.
August 17th at 7:30?
No, let's make it 7:45, so that if we have a hearing before them, we can take it and
Oh.
keep the room, keep them all night, yeah.
Okay.
So make it 7:45. If we don't have another hearing, we can do minutes, okay?
And don't give up the room downstairs.
I didn't give it up.
He took it.
I was overruled.
Yeah, if you do have to give it up to the planning board, can you find us another big room?
Yeah, we'll do the police department.
Yeah, okay. I have a second to that motion to continue the discussion on this for 1 month to August 17th at 7:45. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for coming in.
So,
I'm about to turn into a pumpkin meeting. Shall we touch on Kimball real quick?
No, that's your bill. We have minutes too. I'd like to suggest to the board that you all read the minutes so that we can get those approved at the next meeting, because
If we
it's
have
pretty
changes,
late
can
to
we
do minutes
email them ahead of
tonight.
time?
Living in a condo.
Um,
And you weren't allowed to do anything outside that.
We wouldn't have seen any of it, or it should have been all done.
I have.
Then you open it back.
I'll make the changes with Shelley.
That's fine.
I mean, there's things that are
Then they make them.
Are you guys ready to join us?
not to already have some kind of document.
We're all volunteers, you can join us.
With all those units.
We're not adjourned yet. Cheryl is going to open the next hearing on the discussion on the Kimball Farm Village on the project, on the common project, and I need to recuse myself. Yes, there's a restroom on the school.
Oh, and she's.
And he doesn't want to.
To open the hearing.
She doesn't.
He's got 49 units sold. He doesn't have a condo association.
It's crazy.
No. In any condo project, you don't develop the association to. So does it close?
Or some kind
That's
of,
surely close, big enough percent to have done it.
No, you wait till 3 years after the developer sold the last unit.
How do you know?
You have exactly this tall.
It wasn't a good,
Very, very
it wasn't a
common
good
legal
experience.
practice.
For me, or for my client.
Not good
He was a contractor on a project of
owners,
mine.
but that's
and he
right.
didn't
black letter legal.
When you buy, you buy a document, the guy gives you a 60-page document, and you sign the dotted line without reading it.
Well, that's true, it's not.
It's just, but anyway.
But also the water thing
No,
goes
we're
with
still
that.
on the record.
And in my
We're still on
business,
the
I
record.
make them
We're
sign
taking no
contracts,
break.
and they don't, so I sit there and I give them a spreadsheet, I make them sign off, and then just
Are
all
you
details they
hanging
have
out,
to
or
know.
am I closing the meeting afterwards?
Or sign off.
Opposite the water company got.
So you're gonna come back and enclose our meeting?
Water your lawns with the water, town water.
What's the next issue?
Mr.
As a
Kimball.
developer, you gotta come up with a solution.
Extending
It says
Mr.
he's
Kimball
irrigation well.
has sent
Well,
his
the
report
applicant
in.
can't water. It doesn't say the
Waiting
owners.
for Rod and Kitty to come back.
To me, it's cut and dry.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, well, again, we get the water company and get them to tell us.
Yeah.
Historical, we have no, we have.
Letter from
If
Perkins
they
and
say
Hansel
they
is what
can't,
we're
then
gonna be
what they
talking
gotta do
about.
is provide us with those rules and regulations.
But
I understand if we get
Right
50
now, I
people in
don't
there.
see one here, so.
But I would
I
think-
always take the approach, if it doesn't say you can't, you can't.
To keep looking over what.
But it doesn't say
And
an
you-
owner cannot
And you can't
water.
wash your car.
And in fact,
Really.
in another section, it says that the owners will
enforce
keep
that.
watering and maintaining the plants,
Yeah.
and if one dies, they gotta replace it.
How can you enforce not watering your car? The condo association owns it.
Exactly.
Right.
They is.
The fact that they're detached doesn't change it. I know people have big condo associations, they're all,
This is what we're talking
like
about.
2 or 3 units
We're
together.
told that fences,
Yeah.
Close that hearing.
So we cannot continue talking about it.
Right, like Laura and I were talking, just please don't tear down the pink dog, it's so pretty with the balloons.
Okay,
And.
You don't have to leave the room now, Cheryl. They're still on the record.
out you go.
We're open so I can read this.
Oh,
It's subject to.
hold on a minute, I've gotta find the minute.
So look at this, this is the, oh, Kimball Farm, Farm Village. The guy's name on the front, this is Perkins Agents.
We're going to open, it's just under administrative matters, the review of the June 29th, 2016 status report on Kimball Farm Village on the Common. So you all have gotten your,
I don't think I have to recuse.
I don't think you do either.
It's administrative.
Yep.
Go ahead.
You all have gotten your letters from Perkins and Ansel and had a chance to read it?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't read it, please take a few seconds. It's not very long. It's one paragraph, basically.
We're just here to listen.
I think the next time an opening comes up for an alternate, one of you should have.
We weren't expecting the previous one to run on that long.
Welcome to ZBA.
We're expecting the crowd.
Has everyone had a chance to read this now?
Yes.
Rob?
Far enough.
Okay, so basically, my reading of this, and I'm not going to read it out loud into the record. Shelley, would you please include it in the record as it is? The only thing they've done is their septic system. They're impressed with how much they spent on their septic system. The septic system was required by DEP for Kimball Farms. They have said they are tying in the 40B and would like us to consider them having made substantial progress since they have done their septic system.
Now read the comments from Roland.
Yeah, we know. Let's read the comments from Roland. Someone read the comments from Roland into record, please. Yes, wait a minute. You know what, Shelley, I'm going to back up. I'm going to read Kurtzel and Ansel's letter into record. Dear Littleton Zoning Board of Appeals member, in compliance with the terms and conditions of the certificate of vote for Kimball Farms Village on the Common, LLC, dated January 19th, 2017, this letter shall serve as the required detailed status report in accordance with the terms of the vote. A copy of the vote is attached. In preparation for our last meeting with ZBA, I provided a detailed summary in a letter to Attorney Chris Heap dated December 22nd, 2016. A copy of the letter to Attorney Heap is attached. Since the January of 2017, Kimball Farm has spent over $1,500,000 on wastewater treatment plant, bringing the total cost of the system approximately $2 million. The system is almost complete at this time. No additional work on the property can be completed until the wastewater treatment plant has been completed. It is our position that the work completed on the wastewater treatment plant constitutes substantial completion in accordance with the original comprehensive permit. In addition to the work completed on the wastewater treatment plant, Kimball Farms continues to explore various development opportunities. It's continued to mark the property with existing permits. I hope this information is helpful. If you'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss our progress, please contact me. Then Roland, then we got Roland's letter handy. Right here. Would one of you read it? Go ahead, Kitty.
Kimball Farm Village on the Common. Be advised that this office issued 2 building permits last June 2015 for the purpose of pursuing completion of units 5A and 7B. This office can only report that there has been no inspections requested pursuant to the issued permits. Be advised that pursuant to Section 105.5 of the 8th edition Building Code, said permits did expire 180 days after issuance due to inactivity, abandonment, or lack for verification via inspection. This office has occasionally visited the site and witnessed no activity. There has been no request for extension of said building permits. More recently, a building permit was issued for the construction of a water resource recovery facility building, with the last recorded inspection being insulation. No further comment.
Discussion.
So in other words, nothing's been done.
Absolutely
Well, the only-
nothing except for they built their waste treatment
That
plant
was
that
for
had to be completed before they could open. It got completed before they opened, and they are saying they can tie this into it. So that is their example of work. We don't have to accept that, but we have to
When we
acknowledge it,
when we
what they're saying.
granted the one-year extension, wasn't it predicated on some building permits and being issued and being acted upon?
We did not get down to that level of detail from my reading of the minutes. I can go back and review the tape.
Is
Well,
the
I think-
treatment,
I think the main reason we did extend the permit for another year was not so much that we actually expected them to have any activity, but rather it strengthened their position in negotiating with whatever parties are out there for some type of development for it. I don't think anybody believed that they were actually going to build anything.
Now, Mr. Kimball has said publicly that he has no intention of building this.
So we essentially did them a favor to say, okay, to strengthen your hand, we're going to say, yeah, the permits go for another year.
But we
And
also
we-
required that they do something and report back to us in 6 months. They're saying that something they did was they completed the septic treatment plant, and that it includes this area. Now, you could certainly argue that that increases the markability of that property.
Cheryl, can I just for clarification, I'm obviously new to this, the water treatment facility that they completed in time for Kimball Farm itself to open, is that in fact hooked up or will support the development, or that's we'll get there?
What was presented to us in the hearing is it would include this property.
It would be capable of supporting the property.
I don't know if the pipe has actually put in. We could certainly ask that. Let's ask that, Shelley. Has the property been tied in to the new septic system? Is there piping running to the new septic system?
Well, the piping has to come
Where's it
from
running
somewhere,
from?
there's no houses. so-
There's nothing for it to run.
There was a location where the old waste treatment plant. Is there any kind of piping even heading under the road? What piping has been done to the property?
Is there a main?
Is that treatment in Westford or Littleton?
In Westford, which
You can see it.
we're delighted to have in Westford.
Well, except we can't tax it.
Well, do we tax treatment plant, Westford?
The plant's in Littleton, isn't it?
We're going to tax the
Anyway,
buildings.
that's just leaching field that's over there in Westford. right?
Well, either way, they're coming back in about
Huge.
December, and they're gonna be looking
Oh, so
for
that plant
another
is Littleton
extension.
line.
And I, for one, am not gonna
The
be keen on
building
giving
with
them a
that, yeah.
40B extension. They've
Well-
had too many.
Well, that's certainly your opinion, and it may be my opinion also, but,
I think if you're
Someone
gonna
keeps
discuss
telling-
anything, I think if you're gonna discuss anything, you have to request that this be posted as a hearing. This is just an administrative update, because they need to have the opportunity to respond if you're
I
discussing.
think we're allowed to discuss it.
We just can't make any decisions.
Well, don't they have, they've got a year extension, this is halfway through the extension. and
They were
just-
supposed to come back to us with a
Report.
detailed report of progress.
And
And
that's,
this is their detailed report of progress.
But if
tell you
this
they
is
spent
some-
$2 million.
But if this is
That means
cited
they're
in
planning something,
Westford, and it's been
$2 million
mostly
West
being
Kimball's
used
gonna-
for Kimball Farms, then there's no substantial progress on this property.
It's made big enough.
I would like Shelley to send a letter to Mr. Ansel asking if any piping extends from that sewage system towards this property, or to the property physically. I mean, has he put in, that septic system's on the other side of the road, you guys have all seen the big
Yeah.
mound, is on the other side of the highway, and that is a state highway there, is on the other side of the highway, and the property we're talking about is on the other side of his property. So is there any piping headed towards this property or on this property to accommodate it? And that's a reasonable question about what they've said on their progress. Any other questions?
Yes, obviously, again, new to this and I don't have all the background, but I assume at some point, if he's tying this into the 40B permit and the property in Littleton, there's been some certification that the water treatment facility is sufficient to take on the additional properties in Littleton if built to the original specifications or some modification thereof. I didn't see anything in any of the documents that I read with respect to that.
DEP has the right to combine septic systems and govern this area. They came to us with the information that DEP had approved combining this project with theirs and putting in one septic system.
Okay, so it is,
That's what they
technically
tell us.
capable of supporting the Westford stuff as well as the Littleton project.
That
Okay.
is what has been put in writing to us.
Okay, that just wasn't clear from what I had read, so thank you.
There's lots
Fine.
of, they bought the property back in 2011.
Mhm.
When they bought the property, it was supposed to be started within 3 years and completed within 5. We've had.
Yeah, there was great detail in the minutes, so that was very helpful in educating me as to what's
Those minutes
transpired.
haven't been approved yet, and there's some
Correct.
amendments to them
Correct.
coming up, but
But just in terms of background for me, that was helpful.
we'll discuss those at a later date. But, so, there's no decisions to be made here, but we can certainly ask for more clarification. Does anyone else have anything else they want to put in the letter? And you can also ask, are there any plans to pull any building permits in the near future? Just to give your letter something more interesting to
Or
say.
any activity on the site in the next 6 months.
Right. That's all. I think Ms. Gould is waiting very patiently to come back in and close our hearing.
Yes.
Or meeting.
Meeting.
Adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Gould.
I want to do minutes next time because of the lateness of the hour. I'm sorry, Shelley, but I promise you, we'll do them first.
Shelley, I'm going to come go over some of the Kimball things with you ahead of time.
The
so-
minutes that contain the
Yeah,
Kimball
if you
hearing.
have any, if there's any like major revisions to them, you can just send them to me marked up and I'll revise them and send them back out. Try to save time.
I've got minor ones, and I'll give them to you. So I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Move to close the meeting.
Second?
Second.
Beat you to it.
Everybody's seconding. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, we don't have Jeff, we need a voting alternate.
Oh, are we allowed, are we going to follow Bill Farnsworth rules that the alternates aren't allowed to make motions and?